Right. Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started now with our Board of Regents committee meetings, but before that, we are going to ask Bree Golden to do a ceremonial swearing in of our new student board member, Kennedy Orr. Kennedy was officially sworn in about a half hour prior to our joint BESE and Regents meeting, where her family joined her, but we didn't want to miss the chance to celebrate that moment with her here. So, Bree, the floor is yours. Congratulations, Kennedy. I think since you were sworn in twice, you automatically get 2 terms. Kennedy has been appointed to a number of committees that she'll begin serving on today, and we're so glad that you're here. Members, please remember we're being streamed live, so you need to turn your microphones on when you're recognized and speak directly into the microphone so that our virtual audience can hear you. We're going to shift our agenda around slightly and start today with facilities and property. I'm going to ask Regent May, please, to call that committee to order.
Regent Temple, LSU representative, UL representative, Supervisor Tarver, Supervisor Mount. We have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll now move to item number 3, the consent agenda, small capital projects. Chris?
Yes, sir. This agenda item is just the small capital projects that have been approved since our last committee meeting. If there are no questions, we recommend approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you. You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve the projects on the consent agenda? Second?
Second.
All right. Any discussions? Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion passes. Bear with me as my fingers are not sticky enough. All right. Next up is Act 959, project budget increases at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Chris, please proceed.
Yes, sir. So this is a project that was approved under the provisions of Act 959 by the board in January of 2023. It was originally a grant or funded between a combination of grant dollars from the National Institutes of Health and self-generated revenues generated by the New Iberia Research Center. The project scope was to build out the 3rd floor of the center's building 29 to create a fully functioning laboratory for non-human primate research. During the review process, or design process, that started in the late spring of 2023, they realized because of updated requirements from the National Institutes of Health that the cost was going to increase. Also in that time, Act 959 statute was amended last year during the session to allow projects to increase from the previous threshold of $5 million per project to $10 million. So the estimated cost for this project with the budget increase is not expected to exceed $6 million, although the UL system and ULL is asking for an increase up to the $10 million threshold so that if there are any other future increases that come up, they won't have to come back to the board for reapproval. The current increase up to the $6 million, and if there were any subsequent increases in the future, would all be paid for by self-generated revenues generated from operating the center there in New Iberia. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chris. You've heard the recommendation. Is there questions? Motion to approve? Second?
Second.
Regent Will, thank you. Any discussions, any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, motion passes. We'll move on to item number 5, an update on House Bill 2. Chris, please proceed.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Agenda item 5 is for informational purposes only, but the slide on the screen reflects the projects in House Bill 2 that are receiving new state dollars for fiscal year 25. In the bill that was sent to the governor, there are 102 projects containing an appropriation for higher education. Those funding sources represent general obligation bonds, various means of cash financing, as well as projects being funded with self-generated revenues that the institution may be providing. Of those 102, 48, as you see on the screen, are, again, projects receiving new state dollars. So the breakout there is by system. Again, higher ed fared very well through the capital outlay process. And I'm happy to answer any questions on specific projects. Otherwise, that's the end of the House Bill 2 update.
Thank you, and it's great to see continued progress on addressing those issues. You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve? All right, second.
Second.
Regent Temple, thank you. Any discussions, any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposition? Motion passes. Any other business to come before the committee?
Yes, sir. The last item we have is an update on House Bill 940. This was the bill that was presented this session to provide a mechanism to tackle the substantial backlog and deferred maintenance across all our systems. The bill passed towards the end of the session and was sent to the governor's office for his signature. The bill ended up creating the College and University Deferred Maintenance and Capital Improvement Fund within the state treasury, which will provide the mechanism that the institutions will be able to use to try to knock out the $2 billion backlog in deferred maintenance. You can see there the breakout that was allocated to each system in the bill. These numbers are based on self-reported deferred maintenance figures that we receive annually from each system. The bill doesn't permit any new construction or additions to existing facilities. It's strictly for gut renovations, demolition, typical deferred maintenance projects, and things of that nature. The bond money that will be associated with this project will not go into effect until July of 2026. However, the legislature did appropriate $75 million to get things started this year. We met with the system presidents and staff and the division administration, including the commissioner, last week and the week before to kind of get things set up and discuss the process for how we're going to move forward. We intend to bring a list of projects for required JLCB approval during the August 9th meeting this year. And at that point, we hope to, start moving forward with the projects that we'll have submitted by each system. I'm happy to answer any questions on this or provide updates annually or, as frequently as need be going forward.
Regents?
They're all existing defined projects. There will be no new projects that are not currently on the deferred maintenance list. They can't be added to it.
No, I mean, just because of the nature of deferred maintenance, there may be something 2 months from now at an institution that fails, a mechanical system that
Correct.
is top priority. Those will be allowed. The main thing is we have to have these projects on the list we submit to JLCB for approval. That was one of the requirements of the legislation. So the plan is to, when we submit the list for consideration, we intend to place much more projects on the list than we have available funding for. That way we have the flexibility that if something were to break, If something unforeseen were to break, JLC meets almost every month, and FPNC has they provide updates every month, so we could go back and add a project at that time, an unforeseen emergency. However, we also, like I said, intend to add more projects than we have money for this year in order to have flexibility to capture some of these things if we're not able to proceed on this project and something else becomes a priority.
So does a list exist now for those the established deferred maintenance projects?
We sent out a template to the systems. Again, we met with them Monday. We asked them to provide their updated lists and plan by June 28th of this month.
So I would like to request that, and it don't need to be anything formal, at least when they do provide that back to you.
Sure.
Additionally, does this new pool of dollars, how did it impact the existing deferred maintenance fund that the Regents have received the last prior year? Did we still get that $10 million? Or?
No, not in addition. It basically supplants what we received. In the last few years, we received $50 million and $50 million from the legislature. The year prior to that was 25. And there was a stretch before that where we didn't receive any deferred maintenance funding for many years. So, we're fortunate in that we received some level of funding this year in excess of the last 2 years to get this program jump-started and get things moving.
Okay, thank you.
Once the bonds kick in, will this be able to be funded, this $2 billion, over the 10-year period?
That's my understanding, yes. And I don't think the decision is made on the level of funding per year, but, it could be 200 million to 300 million or whatever that figure may be once they start issuing bonds.
This is a tremendous thing, I think, for all the colleges and universities, because $2 billion looks like a big hill to climb, and if this can resolve that, I just think it's so important to all our colleges and universities, and want to commend everybody that worked on this and were able to get this across the line.
Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Weil. You're absolutely right. This is huge. This is multiple decades in the making of us trying to make the case for a solution at the scale of the problem, right? So when you have 25 million against a $1 billion problem, 50 million against a $1.6 billion problem, you're just not getting there. And so I cannot say enough about the House Speaker, Representative Turner, and everyone who understood the scale of this problem and said, we're going to finally solve this issue. And 75 million is a start. Next year, we'll have to go back to talk about the bonding process and the state funds to cover the bonds. But this is big, really big for higher ed.
Regent May, I am not on this committee. Do you mind if I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So I piggyback on what Commissioner Reed said and Commissioner Weil. This is huge. Along the lines, Regent Aubrey, your question, I want to ask Chris and maybe even Matthew and Kim a question. So right now, this is an allocation method has been created here based on the self-reported deferred maintenance needs of these 4 systems, right? So the $2 billion in total, take UL an example, roughly 25%, right, is in the UL system. As UL, just because I can do quick math on 25%, chips away at their number over the years, and their percentage of deferred maintenance might be changing disproportionately to the total if new projects are added in. How are we going to address how we're distributing that amount that we get every year across that new numerator and denominator?
Well, one thing that we discussed the other day was using some of these funds that we're providing now to go out and conduct assessments on each campus so that we'll have a better idea of the actual need and kind of serve as, I guess, as a guidepost for moving forward. I'll let Matt, I guess, speak more. distribution over the years, but one thing multiple systems ask for is, may we use these dollars to go out and hire a firm to conduct assessments on each facility, each system, to see, if these numbers should be adjusted in any way.
And Regent Solomon, for the distribution in future years, so we have a distribution now for the 75 million. And that's starting with, we're providing each system a base funding amount and then allocating the remainder on top of that. As we get the first portion of bond payments, we'll go through that again. So we'll ultimately get to the 2 billion, but each time we get new money, we'll assess a distribution, and that may change based on needs at that time and projects that come in. Because there may be the 75 million doesn't cover, is a drop in the bucket, and as we get, there's projects that we know, especially at the southern Baton Rouge campus, their whole electrical and water line needs to be replaced. That's a very large project, so there would be a move to make sure that they have enough funds to cover that in addition to other projects. So it would be reevaluated every time new funds are made available.
And the 2 billion is based on the current backlog of deferred maintenance. Given the total footprint of these 4 systems and what the value of the assets are, what kind of new deferred maintenance would one normally expect over the course of the next 10 years to roll onto backlog? Just like if things are as normal, not if there's an unexpected, major casualty, but presumably we should be thinking about, we know that new deferred maintenance will be needed every year as the facility ages. What does a 10-year outlook, if you had to do a projection, look like on what one should expect that deferred maintenance volume to be?
I think that could vary wildly based on the age of systems, but I will say one of the major benefits of this bill versus prior year deferred maintenance money, in the past, as we received these funds, an institution could only go out and replace a roof or replace an air handler, kind of picking project by project. This bill allows them to complete gut renovations of facilities. So they're, instead of, piecemealing projects here and there over a period of 2 or 3 years, they'll now be able to go in and completely renovate a facility, potentially knocking out, 10% of deferred maintenance associated, with their backlog of that facility itself. So they'll have that flexibility to, I think, be more efficient and accomplish greater things by performing renovations of the entirety of the facility, which should, over time, mitigate or reduce any increase over time.
I would just add to that, I think there was a conversation about preventative maintenance and what that looks like. The legislature certainly asked, are we going to be back here in 10 years with you asking for another $2 billion? So there is an expectation that we get our arms around how to fix what we have proactively, but also how to maintain what we have. Currently, the campuses spend about $50 to $60 million of their operating dollars on deferred maintenance, outside of whatever the legislature provides. And so there is an expectation that our financing model will be such over time that we sustain this work, which is why we need to make sure we have the assessments and we understand your good question about what is the expectation each year and how do we budget for that as we address these needs. But Chris is absolutely right. HB2, as you all know, is a line item project with a dollar amount. This is meant to be an ability for institutions to assess facilities and say, well, the roof is bad, but actually the chiller, we have a chiller problem, we have a HVAC problem, or whatever the things may be. And so it may be cheaper to renovate than to go project by project, which is what HB2 allows you to do. So we don't have the flexibility in HB2 that we have in this legislation, which is one more reason we are so excited about this bill.
Any further questions? You're on.
So the systems, the dollar amounts will go to the system, and the system will decide about the priority spend of the projects. So management boards will manage, right? So it'll be your responsibility of the management boards working with your system presidents to decide when you get that dollar amount. And also how you will manage it. So the legislation allows for third-party project manager. It allows for a CEA with a foundation, with a corporation. So the systems will have to decide how they want to execute the work, how they want to allocate the dollars, and we do have a responsibility to report back to JLCB twice a year on usage of the dollars and how we're moving it forward. Remind me, does the legislation require them to send it bundled to us and then to the legislature, or do the systems send it directly?
Well, we're not specifically required in the legislation, but I think with the coordinating role that we've had in the past and we're pursuing with this bill, I think they would flow through us. We're putting a template together. We put the template together for submitting the projects for August JLCB, and the plan is for us to put a template together so everybody's reporting consistently and we're all looking at the same thing. So my intention is to have them submit those to us as well.
Chris, is there an ideal time to report back on the progress on this and where we're likely to see what's being addressed?
The legislation requires semi-annually. The first due date on that will be March of next year. If the projects are approved in August, they conceivably probably won't start till around, September 1st, give or take. And some, will have multi-month design time associated with it. So, I can update the board as soon as we see progress, or we could wait on the prescribed time of March. And that's our goal, we want to spend money between now and next year to show progress. And we've listed a few ways that we think the institutions can do that while also planning for new projects to use these monies for.
So depending on the date of our board meeting and JLCB, we will report to you on hopefully the approval of the list by JLCB. And then also how the systems are going to be executing if they have made those decisions by then. But yes, there's work that we can certainly keep you posted on. And then to the management board members who are here, I want to make sure that you're aware there is a lot of bureaucracy around this legislation, and so we're trying to make sure that we've looked at the timing of all of the meetings, when materials have to be submitted for architect selection, for design, because what we don't want to do is get to the next legislative session and we've spent $2 million out of $75 million, right? Because it just takes so long. So what the author asked us to do was to expedite the process, but also document the process so that if there are significant barriers to moving the work, that next year we can go back to the legislature and say, having to go through architect selection, design, all these things is a challenge. We talked to the division about doing special meetings to try to get the timing in as efficiently as possible, but we still do have to go through all that process. So you all will hear that as you're talking to your system presidents. So you all have a responsibility to submit to the board. So the legislation requires the Commissioner of Administration to approve your list and your process for execution and joint budget to approve your list. So regents will collect it by the end of June to go to the division by July. They have to approve it and submit it to joint budget for August, and then we go from there. And so there's an attestation letter that the system presidents have to sign, affirming that these are only deferred maintenance projects. There's a uniform template that everyone has to submit. So you all obviously will be engaged in those conversations. Then once JLCB approves the list, the division has asked us to do double the amount on the list, so we have plenty of options because cost overrides, et cetera. So then it'll be up to the systems to decide what projects get money and how you spend it. The sequencing of the projects, that will be your work.
Very aggressive and a lot of coordination with the board, various systems. What you don't want is
So the dollars allow for third-party management by the systems. And so we did speak to them, to the systems, about what can we do to help. One of the things they asked for was, can you tell us from the division, who are the project managers that they're using? What kinds of architects, et cetera, are they using, and how can we provide that? So we'll be sharing that. I don't think there's allowable use for additional staff from us, and I don't know that we need that, but we are absolutely, to your point, trying to make sure everyone has the level of support that they need, because the capacity is different, right? So when LSU's in the room, they said, we may not use a project manager. We have our own architects. We have our own staff. LCTCS will say, we already have a corporation that's doing facilities. Can we use our existing facility corporation? And so they will approach this in different ways. We are certainly there to support, and so we'll keep you posted if we sense any concern there. But the dollar amounts are intended to allow the systems to add the staffing that they need to structure it so that it moves efficiently and effectively. Okay.
Any further questions or comments? I'll just echo what we've already heard. It's outstanding news and great opportunity for the state of Louisiana to catch up on this deferred maintenance, and the amount funded will certainly help to address the additional deferred maintenance that will come along. So I'm very excited about it with our campuses and institutions with the challenges they have already. One less thing to have to address. Chris, is there any further business before the committee?
I would like to add one last thing since we're talking about capital projects. Just an update real briefly on the Grambling Library. They are on the last side, the north-facing side. It was the issue, and they're executing one final change order on that project. They anticipate hiring a firm to come in and do a real good cleaning to get construction debris and dust that's accumulated without use of the building over the last several months. I think they're going to, the institution would like a video board installed within the facility. They're going to take care of that as a smaller contract, and the goal is still to have that facility open for the fall semester.
Very good. Is there a motion to adjourn? Second? Very good. Any discussions? All those in favor say aye. Thank you. We are adjourned.
Excellent. Thank you, Regent May. Next up is the Audit Committee, returning to our schedule. Regent Seal could not attend the meeting today, so Regent Williams-Brown, will you please call your committee to order?
Thank you. I'd like to call the Audit Committee to order. Mrs. Bentley Smith, will you call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Regent Williams-Brown?
Here.
Regent Creed? Regent David? Regent Finley? Regent Weil? I believe we have a quorum.
Thank you. Next up is item 3, the internal audit update. Mrs. Bentley Smith, please proceed.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Kristen Bork and Laura Swallow from Eisner Amper, previously known as Postal Wait in Netherville. They're here to discuss our fiscal year 24 completed audits.
Thank you
Kristen,
all.
can I ask you to pause for 1 second? I think we need to appoint one more person to this committee in order to actually have a quorum. Well, then I'm going to ask Regent Williams-Brown to appoint Regent Cordell to this committee.
I'd like to appoint Regent Cordell to the committee for the purpose of establishing quorum today.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time this morning. Our agenda today will include an update on the overall status of our annual audit plan. We will also present the results of the expenditures process audit, as well as a status update of our audit over the LSTEM program. The chart presented on this slide shows all of the audits included in our fiscal year 24 plan and their statuses. As of today, we have completed the Lossville IT security audit and issued that report in February. The expenditures process audit is also complete, which we will discuss today. And we are currently wrapping up our LSTEM program audit. In addition to those audits, our annual plan also includes follow-up audits of observations that were identified in prior year audits and their corresponding management action plans. Of the 5 follow-up audits on our plan this year, we have completed 2, issuing those reports last month, and the other 3 are being wrapped up now, and the reports on those should be issued in the coming weeks. So we'll move into our expenditures process audit results overview. This audit was conducted to assess Regents' processes, policies, and procedures related to expenditures and expenditure approvals. This audit was included in our annual plan in response to a letter that was issued by the legislative auditor, which communicated the risk of material misstatement through management override of controls. To complete our procedures here, our team has obtained and analyzed documented policies and procedures. We have interviewed key personnel involved in the expenditure process and performed walkthroughs of their processes. We obtained a listing of expenditures for the prior fiscal year and performed analysis on that listing to determine its completeness and accuracy. And we selected a risk-based sample of transactions from that list to perform detailed testing. Based on our procedures performed, our team identified 2 observations that were assessed to be of low risk to the organization. There were no high or moderate risk observations identified, and we've included the risk rating definitions here for your reference. As stated, there were 2 low-risk observations identified. None of the observations that we identified were related to the risk of management override of controls. That was communicated by the LLA in their letter. Internal controls such as system access controls and segregation of duties and functions exist to help mitigate those risks. The 2 that we did identify that were of low risk, the first one was related to Regents accounting policies and procedures. While the policy included majority of the key processes, there were some elements that were either incomplete or not clearly defined. Additionally, there were the documentation retention requirements weren't formalized in the policy, and there were some inconsistencies across departments. The other observation we identified through our transaction testing that the expenditure requisition was not completed or approved prior to the purchase for one of the 15 expenditures that we had tested. So we've held our exit conference with management, and since the date that this presentation was submitted, we've also obtained management's responses and action plans to our identified observations, and we have issued the final report here. Any questions related to this audit and its results?
Members, any questions? Thank you both. Appreciate you coming.
A couple other things here, just an update on our last audit of our annual plan, which is over the LSTEM program. As of June 3rd, we have completed, we've obtained and reviewed applicable policies and procedures and conducted interviews and walkthroughs with key personnel over the process, and we've completed assessment of their process and procedures. Our next steps are to complete our draft reporting and provide that to management and hold a meeting with them to discuss any observations, and we'll also obtain any management responses or action plans if applicable, and then we'll finalize that and issue it out to the audit committee. Any questions on our overall status or anything else today?
No questions? Thank you so much for coming and presenting to us, Kristen and Laura. Is there any other business to come before the committee?
Yes, ma'am. Brett Hunt is here to discuss the reorganization of our audit team. So I will bring Brett Hunt up now.
Thank you.
Regent Williams Brown, before Brett starts, as the audit committee is aware, Elizabeth Bourgeois, who was our assistant commissioner for audit and compliance, recently left the Regents and moved to Treasury. And so, as a result of that, we started speaking internally of how audit could look. And so, that's led to the presentation that Brett will give today.
Hi, I'm Brett Hunt, Director of Finance and Administration at LOSFA. This is Patrick Roque, LOSFA's audit manager. As Matthew stated, with Elizabeth Bourgeois' departure, we have looked at efficiencies by combining audit teams from Board of Regents and LOSFA to create an agency-wide audit group that can assist all programs within the agency. There are 5 areas of 22 positions that I currently supervise, including accounting, audit, grants, policy, and purchasing. When we transfer the 3 audit positions from Regents, this will create a division of 25 positions with 9 audit positions. They will all be managed by Patrick. One of the reasons that I know this transition will be successful is my faith in Patrick's knowledge and leadership. He has done most of the work to build a strong audit team at LOSFA, and the merger of the 2 audit teams should serve to make it even stronger. Patrick will be responsible for a team of 8 with 4 direct reports, including the lead auditor, federal auditor, and technical assistant specialist. The lead auditor will manage the team responsible for our TOPS, Go, Start, Formula, and admissions audits. The technical assistant specialists provide direct support to the institutions to ensure procedures are followed and answer any questions from the institutions. The federal auditor will assist with federal grant procedures as well as assist other members from the auditor team when necessary. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the audit transition.
Questions, members?
Well, I'm not on the committee, but Patrick, how long have you been with the organization for?
Directly with LOSFA, it's been since 2019. But overall, state experience-wise, it's over 15 years.
Anyone else?
Been working under Matthew and one in LOSFA, and you're going to combine them two, and they'll report up still through you, Matthew?
They'll report through Brett.
Great.
Through Brett to you?
They will no longer be a report to me.
They will report to the commissioner?
So ultimately, it'll go from Brett, then to Dr. Boutte, then to Dr. Reed. So it'll be, the whole audit function will now be at LOSFA instead of split between Regents and LOSFA. But it still will work on behalf of the entire agency.
Yeah, I might be more confused. If you would just send me the little flow chart, I'm sure someone has it.
We do.
That
Yes.
would be a lot better than me trying to understand, because I really hadn't been.
No, we're,
into the
I
weeds.
think what I heard was Dr. Reed to Dr. Boutte
That's right.
to Brett.
that's right.
Regent Aubrey, just to clarify some of what you were asking, we as a team meet quarterly. So we meet with all of the finance personnel for Board of Regents program, LOSFA program, and LUMCOM program on a quarterly basis, as well as Brett and I meet monthly, and obviously Matt and I meet daily. So there are a lot of assurances and processes already built into just the high level of communication.
It's a collaborative effort. Yes.
Very much, very much.
I'm also not on this committee, but the godfather of the audit committee, Regent Seal, has spent a lot of time vetting this structure, and Regent Seal's informal recommendation, although he's not here today, was that he feels comfortable with the direction of this, and if the godfather of the committee feels good, we are in good place generally. Did our outside audit firm have any voice or advice in this process that we need or have to utilize? Okay. This is an internal matter only, right?
Yes, and so with that, so the Brett will serve as a liaison between Eisner Ampner in the function that Elizabeth previously served in that role. So
thanks.
Thank you. Everything was well put. Is there a motion to adjourn? Mr. Weil, second. Ms. Cordell. Any discussion, any questions? All in favor signify by saying yes. Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Regent Williams-Brown, and thanks to the staff. Definitely appreciate this new structure and hopeful that there's more effective and efficient work from our audit team by doing this. So let's just keep our eyes out across the organization for any other places where we can look to improve our work through this kind of collaborative structure. Move on now to the Finance Committee, and I'll ask Regent David to call your committee to order, sir.
yes, sir. Chair David, Vice Chair Mir, Regent Creed, Regent May, Regent Seal, Regent Temple, LCTCS representative, Southern representative. You have a quorum. Yes, sir. So one of the major functions of the Finance Committee is the approval of the operating distribution based on legislative action that has occurred since the preliminary allocation was approved in March. And so on the screen is the overall action between fiscal year 24 and 25 by the legislature. So session concluded on June 3rd. Between FY24 and FY25, there is a $67.6 million decrease in state funds for higher education. This includes a $22 million increase in the current year that we're in right now, which is made up of one-time funds, and an almost $90 million decrease for FY25, which is made up of $70 million in state general fund and $19 million in statutory dedications. I do want to point out that the budget for FY25 includes full funding for TOPS and Foster Scholars and maintains Go Grant funding at the $70 million level. I also want to point out that Bree will touch on a piece of legislation that was passed this session, but it increases the cap for Foster Scholars from $10.5 million to $40 million. And since we do have about $2 million in payments that need to be made, we're working with the budget office to increase that authority to make those payments to the institutions that made those requests. So Foster will be fully funded with that move. So moving on to the next slide, this is a little more detail on the $22 million increase for supplemental funds. At Board of Regents, $9.6 million decrease. This is mainly driven by a $17 million decrease to TOPS based on student participation, and a $6 million increase for some cybersecurity software for Lonnie. And additionally, $1.2 million was added to the Patriot Scholar program, which was enacted this fiscal year, which allows for scholarship payments for National Guardsmen. And that program has become very popular so far. For the LSU system, it's $9 million. There's one-time allocations for Pennington at $3 million, a system allocation that the system office will distribute among the institutions at $3 million, and $2 million for LSU Ag Center, which are the larger increases there. For the Southern system, there's a $1 million system allocation that the system office will allocate out, and a few smaller line items of 100,000, 250,000 to various institutions. Among the UL system, it's an $11 million state fund increase, mainly driven by a $9 million system allocation that the system office will allocate out to the institutions. And finally, for LCTCS, a $9 million increase that includes $8 million for Workforce Rapid Response Fund. This is allowing them the authority to spend some more dollars on healthcare workforce that they received with federal monies in 2022. And then a $1 million allocation to the system office to be distributed to institutions. And that's the overview of the supplemental bill. Now to the FY25 State General Fund adjustments. There's a few among the LSU system, Southern system, and UL system. There are various system enhancements. The main ones to highlight for the LSU system, there are $6 million for graduate assistantships at LSU A&M, and $4 million each to the LSU Ag Center, Health Science Center New Orleans, Health Science Center Shreveport, $1.5 million for Pennington, and $1 million for LSU Eunice. For Southern University system, the $10 million includes $4 million for Southern Ag, $3 million for Southern Law, and $3 million for operations within the system. Finally, for the UL system, the $7.5 million includes $6 million for Nichols, $1.2 million for the system to allocate among the institutions, and $250,000 for McNeese. For Board of Regents, for LOSFA, there's $1.4 million to increase the Patriot Scholars Program, and the $600,000 that remains at LumCon for the NEAR project. The $3.3 million for the LSU First Plan, that was included in the executive budget and remains. And then $50,000 at LOSFA for the Go Youth Challenge, which is another National Guard program that LOSFA helps fund. Finally, there's a decrease in TOPS of $33 million. So a portion of that $22 million is due to a swap with the TOPS fund having more money, and $11 million in decrease associated with student participation. $12 million for mandated cost adjustments. This is a cost savings as a result of the retirement payments, debt repayments that were made 2 sessions ago. And so there's a savings there for the institutions. And finally, the non-recurring adjustments. This is all the line items that were included in the current year budget that were one-time in nature. And so that gets us to the $70 million decrease in higher education. So finally, this is the operating budget that we are recommending to you. This includes all the state general fund adjustments and self-generated adjustments that were included in HB1, as well as any statutory dedication adjustments. And so with that, senior staff recommends that the committee approve the funding recommendation for higher education for fiscal year 2024-2025, and staff is requesting permission to make system requested adjustments among institutions as permitted by law. For some of our newer members, there is a law that allows the system offices to reallocate up to 5% of their state funds among institutions, and also to any line items that went to system offices that need to be allocated out, so we can work with systems to make those allocations. So that is our recommendation. Correct. That does not go anywhere near the formula. That's above and beyond it. Yes, sir. Yes, it is. It is. They're seeking legislative support. They're receiving that, and that is going for whatever initiatives they've requested or that the system sees fit to allocate for. Yes, sir. So they'll move the money around as they see fit to give it to institutions. They'll report that back to us, and so we compile a list of what each institution receives, so we can have a total institution budget, and we submit that to the budget office, so the division can send out appropriation letters on July 1, and that is the official enactment of that system's budget and what they can spend from each means of finance. Mm-hmm. So when we meet in September for the budget hearings, we'll be reviewing the spread of how they plan to allocate these funds out. In addition, so that'll be a one-time thing, but in addition to that, as I've reported on in previous meetings, we're working with the system CFOs now to create a quarterly reporting system. So we'll know, if we'll be able to see by the end of the second quarter, or sometimes by the first, if there's a change if you collect 40% of your revenue, your tuition revenue, in the first quarter, and then by the second, when we get ready to go into the spring, you would expect you'd be around 50 or so percent. If you're not there, we know there's a problem going forward. So we're putting that in addition to just the regular budget spread, to get an idea of where institutions may have issues, or they may be exceeding what they've done in the past, and that's a great thing.
How many institutions in this academic year in the middle grade need additional state dollars to close their fiscal gap?
So I'm not sure, to be honest with you. There's institutions that we've been made aware of that have financial difficulties, but they have reserve dollars that they're able to draw from to close those gaps. But that'll also be part of the reporting that we'll be bringing forth next fiscal year of where reserves are, if you're dipping into reserves, because that's something that as a board we don't have access to.
Thank you, Regent Already, and I can tell you that this has been something on our mind a bunch lately, and we've had lots of meetings and letters, and we want to make sure that this year's financial reporting is as transparent as possible. There are problems. We have decreased enrollment, we have inflation, we have significant issues we'll talk about in a second. If the 45-cent sales tax isn't renewed next year, that we need to have transparency throughout our systems and our institutions so we can figure out the best ways to find efficiencies and to help us, help our students, help our institutions to succeed and prosper.
We have an issue out in those fiscal scores and none of these early alerts. And the governor asked me last week about it. We've got to do a better job, and we expect Regents to be more on top of some of the issues, particularly these campuses.
And historically, we haven't been given the authority to do that. And so we're trying to work with the systems to have that information. We ask questions of the systems. They tell us what's going on in more of a generalized, not school by school answer. And we're trying to help them. No one's against anybody here. We're all here for the state of Louisiana, our citizens and our students. and our institutions and try to figure out the best way forward, because it is going to get worse as student enrollment drops, as inflation increases, and as funding, and unless people find a way to renew that sales tax or find some other funding source, there's going to be cuts. We know by history there'll be cuts to higher education in the future. So this is a huge issue. It's taken very seriously. We've had very serious conversations with the systems, trying to be as stay in our lane but follow our constitutional mandate to help make sure these institutions and systems are managed properly. But there's a road that we're in, and there's a road lane that the systems are in, there's a lane the institutions are in, and we're all trying to work together to figure that out. I hope I said that right, Commissioner.
You did. I would just add, this board has, over this last year, I think signaled very clearly that fiscal health and fiscal watch needs to be much more of an aggressive priority. And so, as Matthew mentioned, he's meeting with the CFOs to put together quarterly a fiscal health report that is much more proactive, looked at cash flow and a number of early indicators that would allow us to understand where they are. We've had some conversations about distressed campuses after the fact, and so now we want to make sure we have early warning before we get into those situations. And so I know the CFOs are finishing that up. That information will come to you. As your finance chair has appropriately stated, we have a shared responsibility. The management boards manage, and so we can't step over them, but we do have to meet our requirement, as you mentioned, to be able to say we do have our arms around what's happening. We have a good insight into where we are. We're able to advocate appropriately based on actual information. And so I think, this is coming, and obviously, we all know that there were some challenges that have really pushed this conversation to the forefront.
All righty. So we have any other questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes. Other business. Matthew, any update on the funding formula, work group, and planning for the next fiscal year?
Yes, sir. So as I've reported in the past, we've started the work of reviewing the current formula model. We have a work group made up of system CFOs, system CAOs, and each system president appointed an institution rep. So it brings us to a total work group of 12 among the systems and then Regent staff. We've met 7 times. We have our 8th meeting tomorrow. So we've gone through kind of an overview of formulas. We've had other states present to us on their models, and we have a consultant in CHIMS working with us who's provided a lot of good information. And so we're in the process now of taking recommendations and proposals from the systems and discussing those, and we'll be, for the rest of the summer, working through putting those proposals into a metric form and creating a formula model through that to further discuss. The goal will be to finish our work in early August, present that to the system presidents in August, and then bring for your review and approval in September. And so that's our update on the formula. For the next fiscal year planning, so even though we're not even FY25 yet, we started talking about FY26 since come July 1, 2025, the 0.45 sales tax will no longer be enacted. And that's right around $600 million that the state will lose out on, that will no longer be collected in revenue. We typically know that higher ed and healthcare have served as kind of a balancing act for those budget hearings. For those balanced budgets. And so with that, we'll be working with the systems to create planning documents for not having a large amount of state revenue going into 26. The executive budget that will be presented by the governor in January will not have that $600 million, so there'll be a portion of higher ed that is severely impacted from that. So we're putting together a sheet to send to the systems that will ask for them to present at the budget hearing how those reductions will impact their institutions and their systems.
Any questions or discussion about that?
Just a point of clarification to Regent Aubrey. So this September, in the budget hearings, you will hear from the systems about how they would have to manage up to a $250 million shortfall in higher education as a result of 0.45. So that's a significant challenge for us, but we have a responsibility. You remember when Commissioner Barrard came to our trusteeship conference, he said, we legally have to present a balanced budget. The 0.45 is scheduled to roll off. Now, they could decide to change that, but we will present it as a starting point, a departure point for the conversation. So to your question, Regent Aubrey, when will we know this? This September, you will have a conversation with each system about what would that look like? What's the impact of the slowdown on FAFSA? What's the impact of potential enrollment shifts? So those significant discussions will happen at this September's budget hearing, because we are legally required to submit a budget by November 1st to the division. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You can bet our discussions in September are going to be much more targeted toward that. So I want everyone here to be prepared and to ask those tough questions, and not to point fingers, but to figure out how we can get through this. Yes, Regent Wheel. Rob? Yes, I think Matthew did that math based on the $600 million reduction. Is that right?
Yes, sir. So, Regent Wild, we had discussions with the division about what's the number that we could potentially anticipate seeing. Dr. Reed and I went to the legislature. We went to JLCB in April. I think it was April. It seems like many months ago. But we're asked that similar question. If we had to reduce 200, what does that look like? And so, we worked with 200, and then in talking with the division, it's probably on our best interest to go even higher, to be, let's say, 250, and what does that look like? And then we can go from there. But that's kind of our best guess at this moment. Obviously,
Yes, that's the planning number that we have to work with.
Whether it's delusional or not, I'm hopeful that the state can figure out some way to renew or find some other revenue source. But right now, as we sit here, we know it's going to sunset without any action, and that's what we'll be looking at, it on top of what we're dealing with right now in this fiscal year. And we know it's been a tough year for some institutions, having a much bigger shortfall in 2 years. Yes, sir. Dr. Tarver.
it is June 30th, 2025 is when it sunsets.
In 1 year.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that, but the fiscal session next year would be the time to address it, I would think, right, Matthew?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And so I would hope, that's a discussion that needs to be happening across higher education and healthcare and throughout the entire state. Regent Temple? Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Tarver, go ahead. I'm sorry.
how do we approach the legislature about passing a bill or doing something about increasing that tax or continuing it? It's just not going to happen on its own. And I know there's limitations that we have in terms of how far we can go in the implementation of this process. But within our means and the vast company of people and organizations in the state, we ought to be able to put together constituencies that can help us get that message across to the person we use. Wherever you return to get that leadership, they're going to look to this board. Not to the board of the institution, to this board. So you often think about this board, so that would be on the plate. How do we begin fashioning the background, the information, the data that supports this? And that would be something we'll talk about.
That's
And
Go ahead, Regent Tipple.
to his point, years ago when we went through the dearth in financing that existed for, I guess, about a 7 or 8 year period of time, what similarities are we kind of, I mean, I think it would be probably helpful for those that weren't, I mean, you're the only one that was here through both times. I came at the very end of Governor Jindal's, at the extremely end, the last 90 days of his term, when things kind of started turning around, but it may be beneficial. It would be beneficial to me, let me speak for me, to get some type of breakdown, some type of comparison with where we are now, what we're potentially facing now, what it looked like, and how it got to that point then, and say, okay, if we don't want to have to play the makeup game, these are the challenges that we dealt with, and these are some of the potholes we don't need to, or ditches we don't need to go into if we don't want what ultimately became the brain drain to happen, because we just say, well, that's just going to be a lost leader, let's let it fall to the wayside. Does that make sense? So to his point, I that would help me, but also clearly we're going to be the ones charged with using, whether it's political capital, relationships in general, you know, legislative relationships, to help people understand, hey, look, I understand the moves that are being made. This is what's going to happen. This is what has happened in the past as a result of those moves. We might need to be a little more cognizant and aware of the direction we're headed if we don't want to fall off that cliff. So.
And I would hope that we can work across, you know, it shouldn't just be an education issue, it should be a healthcare issue too. And so get our friends in the healthcare side of the world. And I'm happy as finance chair, and I know our chair and our commissioner are happy to work with all the systems to work on the education side. And then hopefully we can get healthcare and bring the state to the Capitol again, if not for a special session, for the fiscal session in early 2025. Any other thoughts or questions about that? Thank you, Dr. Tarver, for bringing that up. Those important issues, and you're right. We need to have urgency right now, because it'll be too late once the gavel ends on that session in 2025 to fix this problem.
Sales tax fall off, and
With that sales tax, we have problems right now. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. And if you lose that source of revenue, it's going to get really bad for everybody.
Blake,
Yes, sir. Where's
is
your
that
fire?
something, also, there'll be a vehicle tax rolling off that same year. Should we start as maybe Dr. Tarver is suggesting, maybe the Board of Regents host a forum and bring LABI and the people to the forefront publicly to discuss how this, what's the state going to do without this $400 million?
We need to find the stakeholders who care about this and want to make sure this doesn't happen. So I think I defer maybe to the commissioner and all of us here. Everyone here has political ties as to who the right players would be to do that. And anyone who has influence who sees what we see and wants to stop it, we want them at the table.
I would absolutely agree. I think that the reason we asked for a planning number now, and as you all may recall, the governor also did an executive order to ask people to tighten their belts, but the reason we've been working on this planning number and exercise now is it's a year from now, so it does allow you from the system and campus perspective to articulate the number clearly, right? What would it mean for your McNeese or for your Sewella or for your Nichols? Not just in general terms. So when Matthew and I went to the legislature, they asked, what about $200 million cut? And I said, we are at a 2012 budget right now, right? We're still trying to dig out of a hole. We can't even imagine what 200 million would mean. But for us to have conversations with stakeholders that are effective, they're going to know, what does it mean for Southern Shreveport? What does it mean for Nichols? What does it mean for, exactly. So that's the work we're doing first, to ask the systems and the campuses to articulate what that planning number means in real terms for those campuses. And then you're absolutely right. The stakeholder conversations at the state level, but also regional conversations, so that we can share information. Educators have a responsibility to educate. And so that's the work that we will absolutely be doing moving forward.
Oh, yeah.
Sure, absolutely.
It's not just a one-year effect. It's a generational effect.
Again, I'm new, so I'm going to ask a question. You had mentioned bringing in lobby. How often have we brought in businesses? I know when we recruit physicians, we offer a stipend. Are there certain businesses that would be willing to help be a part of this solution and also have that as a retention for students when they graduate, that they stay here, they work here, that could be looked at on a regional level as well as a state level?
Yes, very important. So we have had, our past chair has convened a couple of conversations with LDOE, so we had some statewide conversations, but we talk with business and industry specifically, discipline specific all the time, whether it's cyber or healthcare or things of that sort. So you're absolutely right. Those are the individuals who I think people want to listen to. They think about education to employment, but they think about the employment side of it, and so those are important partners in this work for sure.
Thank
So
you,
we'll be
Commissioner.
seeking that out, yes.
And I know, hopefully by September, we'll have those quivers in our bow so we can figure out exactly what it's going to look like and specifically figure out how we can get the right partners. So everyone be thinking about this. I think we're off in July, is that right? We're off in July, in August and September as we get ready. We're at some big-time finance discussions, and let's figure out how we can collaborate, find the right business, community partnerships going forward. I know this wasn't a voting matter. Sorry to filibuster and occupy so much time. Any other business before the Finance Committee? All right, hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Regent David, and echoing.
Oh, wait, was that a motion?
I do need a motion in a second.
That one
He
needed
took a
motion?
cue
I'm
out
sorry.
of the,
No, just to
out of
adjourn.
President
I need-
Morris's approach.
I need the motion and second to adjourn.
I need a motion to, okay, can I get a motion to adjourn? So move. And can I get a second? All right, Regent Meary, Dr. Tarver, we are adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, Regent David took a cue out of President Morris's approach to adjourning that meeting this morning. He said, "We are adjourned," and we were out of there.
Hey,
It was was like, that was
I
impressive.
I did talk to our lawyer at LEDA, and he was like, yeah, to adjourn, it's not that, you don't need to have a voice vote or anything like that, but you ought to get a first and a motion and a second. So we can avoid the vote, I think, on adjourning committee meetings.
Well, excellent. Thanks, Regent David, for leading that discussion. Next, we're to move on to the Legislative Committee and ask Regent Temple to please call this committee to order.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. So I'd like to call the Legislative Committee to order. Ms. Golden, will you call the roll, ma'am?
Sure will. All right. Regent Temple.
Here.
Regent Aubrey. Regent May. Regent Meyer.
Present.
Regent Pryor.
Here.
Regent Sterling. Regent Orr. Supervisor Mount. Supervisor Tarver. Have a quorum.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to move on to item number 3, the legislative update. Bree, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you again. Hi, everyone. Good morning or afternoon. As many of you know, the 2024 regular legislative session ended June 3rd, and I wanted to give you an overview of some of the highlights from that session with respect to the things that we've been tracking. Starting with deferred maintenance, HB 940, that is currently still pending the governor's signature. Chris Herring has already provided a very in-depth overview on what's to come moving forward on that, so I won't spend too much time on that. HB 862, authored by Representative Hughes, on tuition and fee authority. This provides public post-secondary management boards limited authority to establish tuition and mandatory fees. We will have Matthew speak to that very briefly on the next legislative item, so I won't spend too much time on that. Teachers' retirement, this is a really big win for all of higher education. This has now been signed into law as Act 109, and it goes into effect at the end of this month. HB 31, offered by Representative Freiberg, this allows an optional retirement plan participant to transfer to the defined benefit plan into the teachers' retirement system of Louisiana. Workforce Solutions, previously Senate Bill 293 by Senator Edmonds, is now Act 330, and it goes into effect on August the 1st of this year. This authorizes the Louisiana Workforce Commission to coordinate the delivery of business workforce solutions in coordination with various workforce and educational agencies across the state. Board of Regents is named as one of those agencies that will help Workforce Commission in this work. Career and technical education. These are both the same bills, now Act 335 and Act 154. Senator Mizell and Representative Brass have authored a bill that has now become law. This directs the dual enrollment task force to look into career and technical education as well as virtual instruction programs to increase the participation of dual enrollment course offerings across the state and in school districts. And it expands task force membership, so we will be contacting the president of the Louisiana Association for Career and Technical Education, who will now become a member of the dual enrollment task force. HB 410 by Representative Brass. This is now Act 427 that went into effect on the 3rd of this month. This increases the threshold from $500,000 to $1 million for projects going before certain professional service selection boards such as architect, engineering, and landscape. To mirror the authority granted to institutions and consortiums to manage projects with a budget of up to $1 million or less. Senate Bill 272 by Senator Edmonds has now been signed into law as Act 102, and it went into effect on May 28th. This is with respect to the MJ Foster appropriations cap. This increased maximum appropriations cap of $40 million to the MJ Foster Promise Program. And then another MJ Foster bill that is currently pending the governor's signature, HB 728 by Representative Paula Davis. This extends MJ Foster eligibility to 17-year-olds by the academic year 27-28. Power-based violence, which was Senate Bill 343 by Senator Barrow, is now Act 482, and it went into effect on the 3rd of this month. This revises current power-based violence laws to shift reporting dates for campus training, as well as the Board of Regents annual legislative report submission date, and I'll talk more specifically on that with the next agenda item. Financial aid reporting. Senate Senate Resolution 138 by Senator Mizell. This is urging the Board of Regents to conduct a comprehensive study on the state's higher education financial aid programs to evaluate their effectiveness, identify barriers to eligibility, align program criteria with the state educational requirements, as well as to develop strategies to improve their coordination and utilization. House Resolution 313 by Representative Rashid Young. This is with respect to two-year colleges. This requests the Board of Regents study two-year colleges in Union, Claiborne, and Bienville Parish, and to submit a written report to the House Committee on Education by January 31st of 2025. HR 169 by Representative Bakla. This is with respect to creation of an ORP task force. BOR is to staff a task force to study ORP within TRSL in relation to the unclassified staff and faculty recruitment and retention crisis faced by Louisiana's public post-secondary education institutions. The next two House resolutions are with respect to Southern University Baton Rouge's main campus. With the first study, HR 51 by Representative Edmund Jordan, this subjects the Board of Regents to study and make recommendations along with the Southern University Board of Supervisors to take necessary steps to establish a medical school on the campus of Southern University at Baton Rouge. And with respect to HR 52 by Representative Jordan, this has the Board of Regents studying and making recommendations along with the Southern University Board of Supervisors to establish a school of pharmacy on the campus of Southern University of Baton Rouge. HB 904 by Representative Chenevert is currently pending the governor's signature, and this is with respect to DI expenditure reporting. This requires public schools and post-secondary education institutions to report to the Board of Regents on programs related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. HCR 78 by Representative Chuck Owen. This is with respect to ESG reporting. This provides that the Board of Regents, along with all of the public post-secondary systems, report out on environmental, social, and governance criteria, and that it is subject to the approval of JLCB. Senate Concurrent Resolution 23 by Senator Barrow. This is in regards to behavioral health. This requests the Louisiana Department of Health to work with Board of Regents and other agencies to study behavioral health demand and access. Gubernatorial appointments. This was Senate Bill 462 by Senator Valerie Hodges. This has now been signed into law as Act 491. This says that the governor may elect to appoint the chairman of each board and commission whose appointment is not otherwise provided for in the Constitution. Senate Bill 465 by Senator Talbot. This is in relation to name, image, and likeness laws. It has been signed into law as Act 358. This is relative to the name, image, and likeness laws at public post-secondary institutions. Well, not public post-secondary, but all post-secondary institutions. It is mostly a trigger law based on the outcome of changes to NCAA regulations or federal law, and also subject to whatever changes may come as a result of two pending Supreme Court cases at this time. HB 908 by Representative Amade. This has now been signed into law as Act 460, and it goes into effect on August the 1st. This prohibits discrimination against students on the basis of vaccination status. And those are all of the bills that are that we have currently tracked this legislative session that I provided an overview on.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions? Clearly very robust.
The only question, Mr. Chairman, that I would ask is, do we get funding at Regents to address all of these study resolutions?
No. No.
So when a study resolution is passed and signed and authorized that deals with something as comprehensive as the creation of a medical school or community colleges in my rural area of Claiborne, Bienville, and Union parishes, how would you as commissioner, or how are we to begin to try to understand the intent and to provide a report in a manner comprehensive enough to achieve whatever this legislator is trying to get accomplished. How are we going to fund that?
So, Regent Aubrey, so in the past, we have not had the funding provided to handle all these studies. As part of, we look through as a team and see what we can do in-house and what we need to contract out to do. Obviously, the ones that are comprehensive, like a med school or delivery in a service area, those typically have to be contracted out. We do have funds available in the Higher Ed Initiatives Fund that the legislature has appropriated to us that we are able to access to pay some of these for some of these studies. But it varies from year to year where we either handle them in-house or we find money within Regent's own budget to handle these things.
And some of those additional earmark and supplements that the system's got, can it be used to help pay for these studies?
If the system so chose to help us.
I doubt it.
You're telling me that these systems who have these ideas and many of these legislators with the alumni, they wouldn't help us, help them?
I will say historically, we have done some shared research between systems. It has not always been the case, but I can think of a couple of times where the system, we split the cost of an outside consultant to do some work.
How appropriate or inappropriate would it be for us, or for us to at least offer them to help us? Because again, that particular one is particular community college focus. I mean, we can contract someone out, but for its implementation, management, and achieving whatever that may come of it is the system responsibility. So I think we should at least ask.
Sure, we'll do that, and LCTCS has been a good partner in the work, so we'll let you know on that, but I would not be surprised if we would have a shared cost model on that. More to come.
Any further questions? Or if y'all just want to go ahead right now and accept that on behalf of your systems, that would. So, any other questions, comments? Yes, sir.
I had a question on the bill about the board appointments, the board chairs, and I was reading that the accreditation agency had directed an issue that this would affect accreditations in Louisiana colleges. How does that go about? When do they investigate and report and say, hey, this is in violation of the standards that boards are supposed to be non-political? How does that work, and when will we feel the effect of that passage of that legislation?
Thank you for that, Regent Pryor. So the question that occurred during the legislative process was one raised about undue influence in a SACS policy regarding concern about undue influence and the ability for that to impact campus accreditation, which impacts the ability to receive federal financial aid, et cetera. I'm looking at Tristan because I know he's had some history with some of these concerns. There are two ways, and Tristan, correct me if I'm incorrect, that these issues can come to light. One, our institutions are on a regular SACS review schedule. And so we have a number of campuses that are already up for SACS review next year, the year after that, and so the whole process occurs. But then there also can be a trigger for an investigation or a concern, as we have seen in some other states. So, Tristan, I'll let you answer that piece.
Yeah. So that can really happen at any time. That if SACS becomes aware of some issue in a state or with an institution that leads them to believe that there may be some way in which a standard has been contravened, then SACS will, in fact, they will send a letter to the appropriate agency or authority to say, we believe that a further investigation is warranted, and so then a conversation will ensue to be able to, for SACS to get to the bottom of if indeed there is whatever that standard might be, whatever that standard might be, has it been contravened? If there are, then again, history has happened in other states that there is sometimes
examples?
statewide sanctions, sometimes an institutional sanction. Yeah.
So there has been examples of
Yes.
them coming down on states for such laws, or
Yes. Yeah. So. To this particular law, in particular, I think it is, well, this particular law in and of itself doesn't necessarily mean that some kind of undue influence will be exerted, but if there certainly have been plenty of state examples across the years and across the nation where SACS COC and other accreditors too have stepped in because perhaps some new state law or the action of some state officer has contravened some standard. Yes. And what happens is that the accreditor will put either a particular institution, or sometimes it has happened that all of the institutions have been put on sanction or on some sort of suspended situation. That I'm not aware of a situation where an accreditor has completely nullified everyone's accreditation, but certainly they have been on sanction or on public notice, and then there is a process that has to then come to a resolution to come out of that.
thank you.
Not just assuming, because I remember when I was brand new and we use a lot of acronyms, so Misty, you probably have clearly figured it out already. Kennedy, I would be surprised if you already knew. SACS is the Southern Association of Secondary Colleges and Universities, so that's, when he asked that question, that's who he's referring to. I don't assume, because I remember me, and I'm looking around like everybody else clearly knows what this is, and I don't, right? So Google is going to be your friend.
SACS wasn't that store on Canal Street.
Right. Google will absolutely be your friend. Okay. Right. That's why I did that. Okay.
The good SACS.
Okay.
Yeah, my apologies. Thanks for the.
We use a lot of
thanks for the check.
acronyms.
Yeah.
Okay. Just put them in Google. Okay. And if you don't get an answer, then ask someone after the meeting. So any other questions, comments? Okay. Bree, Uma, Doreen, on behalf of the board, thank you so much for your intense work over these, this last session. Job well done. We can give them a hand for that, y'all, obviously. And obviously the entire staff for making it a successful higher ed session. Successful session for higher ed. So, next, we're going to have an overview of the high-cost tuition programs tied to the limited tuition and authority legislation. Members, this item was up for approval, but now it's just informational purposes. Dr. Denley, Mr. Library, you going to come back up? You going to let him handle it? I saw you not moving, so,
If I get in
Dr.
trouble in
Denley's
front of
gonna-
a friend, I will definitely. So yeah, House Bill 862, as we mentioned, gives limited tuition authority to the institutions across all four systems. It allows the institutions to create differential tuition for high tuition or high cost undergraduate programs, and also gives them some tuition authority for graduate level programs. And so part of that action and part of we have been working with all four of the systems to identify, well, what are those programs? What are the programs which are in and of themselves just expensive to be able to provide? So the kinds of criteria we've been looking for are, of course, from a facilities perspective, do they use very high cost equipment? Are there significant lab spaces involved? Are there other kinds of very specialized spaces that need to be provided to be able to present these kinds of programs? Are they are the faculty members themselves inherently expensive? I think we all know that there are some faculty whose salaries are significantly higher than other faculty members. And then similarly, is it inherent in the sort of the nature of this program that the classes are very small? So you can imagine a sort of a perfect storm kind of situation where you need some incredibly special space. The instruction in and of itself has to be very, very small in nature, and the instruction may be expensive. That can range from everything from a CDL program, where of course the classroom is now very small. It's the cab of an 18-wheeler, or it could be brain surgery, or all kinds of different kinds of programs. So we have been working with all four systems to identify what are those categories of program which really are inherently high cost. We are not the only people on the planet to have ever done this, as you might imagine. There are many states who have been through this process in and of themselves, and so we have lent very heavily on that previous work to make sure that it has some kind of national reliability. But clearly, Louisiana is Louisiana. It's not other states, and so we want to make sure that it is a Louisiana list, not just an anybody list. And similarly, we want to make sure that we are able to build a process where on an ongoing basis, if a new program appears or the nature of a program changes, then there's an ability for the institution or the system to come forward and say, well, we would like to have that reviewed. So clearly, as we've said, this is still House Bill 862. It is awaiting the governor's signature. Once that signature happens, then we will be happy to bring the list of the proposed high-cost programs to this board for approval. And then, of course, that simply allows the institutions the ability to be able to create differential tuition. It doesn't in any way oblige anybody to do anything. It just allows them the flexibility of being able to, if they see fit, to be able to create an increase.
Appreciate that, Dr. Denley. As we said, it's just for informational purposes only. No action needs to be taken. Are there any questions about it? Okay. Next is item 5, the amendments to the Uniform Policy on Power-Based Violence, also tied to the new legislation that has been passed this session, with Senator Barrow as the author. So, Bree, please proceed there.
Thank you. And as a lot of you may remember, in 2021, this board approved our current policy on uniform policy on power-based violence. And as our continued work with the 4 public post-secondary systems, with their power-based violence representatives and the power-based violence review panel that our office helps to task and coordinate, this bill that Senator Barrow authored is kind of a continued work on the legislative recommendations from talks with the systems and from talks with the power-based violence review panel. So with this update to the uniform policy, current law requires a semi-annual submission of training and incidents related to power-based violence on both October 10th and April 10th of each year. And additionally, the Board of Regents is to take information from the systems related to incidents and related to reporting and submit it to the legislature once a year on January 15th. With respect to the new law that has now been passed, this requires each public post-secondary management boards to send a separate annual training report to Regents by January 30th, and then shifts the submission date for the annual legislative report to February 28th, which would allow us to get all of the information from the systems, roll it up in a report, and make sure that the House Committee on Education and all of the other responsible parties who get the report get all of the timely information. And so with that, senior staff recommends approval of the changes to the uniform policy on power-based violence.
Great. So thank you for that. So members, you've heard the recommendations. Is there a motion to approve?
I so offer that motion.
All right. Regent Aubrey, second. All right. Regent Meir. Any discussion, any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Great. Motion passes. Is there any other business to come before the Legislative Committee? Hearing none. Is there a motion to adjourn, even though he just said we don't have to do this?
So moved.
So moved by Regent Aubrey. Second? Regent Meir. All right, any discussion, questions? All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Regent Temple. Next up, we have Academic and Student Affairs. I'm going to ask Regent Sterling, please, to call this committee to order.
There we go. I'd like to call the Academic and Student Affairs Committee to order. Dr. Denley, would you please call the roll? Here.
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 Thank you, Dr. Denley. We'll now move to item 3, the consent agenda. Please proceed.
Yes, so we have two just very standard items in the consent agenda this month. Just one degree was asking to go 100% online, and another one unit at 7 a.m. that is changing and installing the consent. So staff recommend approval of the
Members, you've heard the recommendation. Are there any questions? Okay, motion by Regent Aubrey and second by? By Regent Williams-Brown. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Now we'll move to academic programs. Dr. Denley?
Yes, thank you so much. And my apologies for not being on mic. So the first item of the 3 academic programs that we have for your approval this time is at Sewella. This is an AAS degree in technical studies. So actually this is part of a series of degree programs in technical studies that we have over the years presented for LCTCS institutions. It's not unique to LCTCS institutions, but they are the ones who have primarily created these. This is a really wonderful program that allows students who begin in a technical diploma to be able to also take some of the gen ed courses and then take that technical diploma and turn it into an associate degree. I know that we've talked much over the years about how it is that we want to create educational avenues, educational pathways that allow students, should they so choose, to begin their education and then build and build and build. And so this is a really wonderful example of this, that the addition of this degree at Sewella would then join similar degrees at sister institutions across LCTCS that allow students who have, for instance, a technical diploma in carpentry or vehicle maintenance or repair technology or welding or any of the other kinds of technical diploma programs that they have there at Sewella to, as I say, be able to take the additional gen ed courses that Sewella is already offering to students in other programs and then turn that technical diploma into an associate degree. That associate degree then opens a lot of doors for that student. You may remember a couple of years ago when we changed the admission criteria across the state to allow students with an AAS degree to then have admittance to any of our 4-year institutions. And I think you know that at LSU Alexandria actually has a BAAS degree that allows all of that AAS degree to be completely transferred into it. So it's a really a terrific new pathway that they're seeking to add at Sewella. Second degree that I have to present is a Bachelor's of Science degree in Construction Management at Southern University A&M. So this is a really important program for us to add. I think one of the large themes of the day is how are we able, as a state, to be able to align the portfolio of degrees that we have to the needs that the state both has and envisages happening. I know I don't need to persuade you that there's a lot of building to be done over the next few years. And so, yes, we need folk who are frontline trades, and that's part of the SUELA programs. And then we also need folk in construction management who are able to organize and really manage those projects well. It is the case that we have several construction management programs across the state. We do not currently have a construction management program at an HBCU. This program has been deliberately created to absolutely serve the population that HBCUs serve. And more than that, they have designed this program so that it will be primarily offered nights and weekends, which then allow people who are actually part of the construction industry, should they like to then be able to seek more education and then become a construction manager. So I think it's a really terrific new format for this program. What's more, Southern has really taken seriously ways in which they can utilize existing facilities on their campus. Just like the SUELA program, the creation of this program really does not require any new resources at all. They are repurposing teaching capacity that already exists in engineering programs on their campus, and then utilizing Title III funds to then be able to support if there are ongoing startup costs over the next 4 to 5 years. They've set aside funds to be able to do that from their Title III funds. So I think it's a really terrific investment for Southern to do. It also, as it happens, creates an alternative pathway for people who initially thought that engineering was their way, and then they change their mind, or perhaps sometimes their minds are changed for them. But regardless, it is helpful sometimes, and certainly LSU's program in construction management, that's been an ongoing feature of that program. So I think it's a terrific new addition and really fills a very valuable hole in our degree portfolio. And then the last degree to present today is a Doctor of Occupational Therapy program at UL Monroe. So again, this is a really important addition, and I think an important direction, and in many ways dovetails very well with the conversations that we've had today, as well as trying to be able to utilize existing facilities and existing resources that campuses have. Campuses also need to make really wise investments for the future that build on existing strengths that they have. And this, I think, is a terrific example of that at UL Monroe. They have the only Bachelor of Science degree in occupational therapy assistant program across the state. There are several associate degrees, but they are the unique program that have and it's a very well enrolled program, hundreds of students who are part of that. They similarly have built on that to have a master's degree in occupational therapy that also is very well enrolled. This is then building on that existing strengths to create a doctoral degree in occupational therapy. Occupational therapy is first of all, a specialty that we need additional capacity across the state for. But more than that, this is a professional graduate program which will then enable UL Monroe to first of all be able to serve the students that they already are serving across a larger arc of their educational journey. It is the case, as you might imagine, that many of the students who are part of that master's program want to get a doctoral degree and then leave the state and go somewhere else. We would like them to stay here. And so having the program enables them to stay here. It is also the case that the structure of this program sort of broadens the in-gate to being part of occupational therapy. Currently, to go through the master's degree, you have to have been through that bachelor's degree in occupational therapy. This program is constructed to be an entry-level program. So students, sure, they could have gone through that occupational therapy assistant program, but they could also have been through a variety of different allied health programs or health-related programs, and then enroll in this doctoral, this clinical doctoral program in occupational therapy. As I say, this program is not free to put in place. But it is a strategic investment on the institution's part to say we are going to put our money building on a strength that we have. And certainly when you look at the budget, you see that over time, this is a professional program, and the tuition over time will certainly make this program much more than self-supporting. And so that will be a helpful feature going forward for that institution. So with that, I recommend approval of, or senior staff do, and I do in particular, recommend approval of those 3 academic programs as presented. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Dr. Denley. I do have one quick question as it relates to the occupational therapy. Do we know if there's a conversation about making the doctorate their minimum degree? You know, physical therapy pharmacies done
Yeah,
that. So is this the move in advance of that potentially happening in the profession?
So yes, so this is a the trigger has not been pulled on that. And I know you're more than aware of similar kinds of conversations in nursing and in other allied health disciplines. This is similarly true, that there is certainly a significant move in the direction of the doctoral degree being the expected degree in occupational therapy. It is still the case as things currently stand that a master's degree is enough, but I think certainly the program at Monroe and their sister program in Shreveport have already seen, this is a direction that we want to go into. I think, and again, they're trying to catch the wave before the wave happens.
So they're getting ahead of it. Thank
Absolutely.
you for that. Are there any other questions from any of the other members? We've heard the recommendation of the senior staff. Is there a motion to approve? So moved. And second by? By Williams-Brown. Any other discussions, any questions? All those in favor, vote by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Our next item is to review revisions to the Academic Affairs Policy 2.15 involving the definition of undergraduate degrees and graduate certifications, which I will tell you is exciting. Dr. Denley prepped us, the group of us before, so I look forward to this discussion. Dr. Denley, tell us about the credentialing update.
Thank you so much. So this is really, in many ways, bringing our policy structure up to date with where it is that, as a board, you have been for some time. So I don't need to tell you that back in 2019, this board adopted our 2030 goal, that by 2030 we would get to 60% of our adult population having a credential of value, not a degree or a diploma, but a credential of value. And you made it clear that you want to broaden the understanding of what credential of value means. And so over the last year since I've been here, we have worked to create the mechanisms to be able to collect data not only on programs that are on the that are eligible for Title IV financial aid, technical diplomas and degrees and credit-bearing certificates, but also for a whole variety of industry-based certifications, short-term workforce training, all of those kinds of programs as well. It's just when we look in our policy structure, we say nothing in our policy structure about any of that very important other avenue for post-secondary education. And so this action that I present for your approval today is really creating for the first time a policy structure exactly around that. So it is about our officially recognizing those market-relevant credentials in ways that they need to be recognized. It is about us broadening the scope of our policy that governs undergraduate degrees and undergraduate certificates to recognize those other credentials. And then it's about trying to make sure that we have, just as is in keeping with this, the work of this board, some kind of statewide alignment around who it is offering these different kinds of programs and in what ways and in what ways will that fill their institutional role and mission. So part of this is to introduce specifically a new term of art and I think we will all it's important to say publicly that the traditional terms that we use for these things, which are traditionally things like micro-credential or non-credit certificate, are really problematic terms. You know, it's awkward to refer to things by what they're not, and so saying that something is a non-credit credential is sort of awkward, and it's also really difficult to explain to an employer or a student why they should really value something where the name says you kind of shouldn't. It's sort of weird. So there is that problem. Micro-credential isn't much better, right? So referring to an important credential by how small it is also seems somewhat counterintuitive. And so we are introducing an umbrella term, validated skills and learning, as a new category that I think appropriately values the skills and learning in the way that it should be valued, and then knitting that those ideas into the policy structure that we already have, that you have built over the years around prior learning, around the collection of data, around the way in which we are now able to understand how people's journeys of higher education unfold. And then we also want to make sure that as we do this work, that we encourage institutions to, sure enough, include these important learnings as part of the journey of higher education. So we want to make sure that institutions, all institutions, include this kind of learning in the degrees and diplomas and certificates that they do. We want to make sure that all of the credentials at every level that students are learning have that important market relevance and exactly are teaching the kinds of things that employers would like to see. As part of that, then, we are introducing two new categories of certification: a COC, a so-called certification of competency, or an IBC, an industry-based certification. The difference really is who is the validator. An industry-based certification is, the validator is a national third party who is saying, yes, in our view, this student has met these national standards. A COC, a certification of competency, is an institution who is saying, yeah, this student has met this particular set of learnings and standards. So then the last piece of this is really to say, well, okay, let's put some understanding about who it is who is offering these kinds of things and under what circumstances. And that's, again, a part of where I really want to say a huge thank you to all of the academic leadership of all four management boards, because as you might imagine, this has been a very vibrant conversation to make sure that we really do understand what this space is. It's a very new and a very evolving space, but this is the way that this unfolds, that we absolutely encourage all institutions, 2-year and 4-year, to embed these kinds of learnings as part of the degrees and diplomas and certificates that they offer. But when it comes to first credential standalone workforce training, that should be offered by 2-year institutions. So programs that are specifically designed to meet that need of first credential standalone workforce training, we are asking that would be delivered by 2-year institutions. 4-year institutions may offer a whole panoply of different things that may actually, and there may be an odd student here or there for who this is their first credential, but that's not the design of those programs. Sir. Mm-hmm. No, so that would qualify under this, and since it would be validated by a third party, that would be in the IBC category. So this is for the Board of Regents' internal classification, for us to be able to appropriately, count and analyze the different credentials. So these are our buckets. It is, as you might imagine, different disciplines, different settings. These certifications may have a whole host of different actual names. This is for our classification. They will not. So the way that, as things currently stand, the Board of Regents formally approves degrees, and so associate degrees and above. Those are the programs that I habitually bring to this body. There are other approval processes for things that are shorter than full associate degrees, and so nothing is changing about that approval process. Thanks for that clarification.
That's right. So if you're doing training programs, Dr. Tarver, training for municipal association, mayors, et cetera, that is outside of this.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you. So before I present this for approval, I believe that There is, I believe, Chandler LeBoeuf from LCTCS would like to say a few words.
Yes, members, we have a representative of LCTCS who would like to speak to us.
Good afternoon, members, Chair Solomon, members of the board, Commissioner Reed. One, thank you for having Louisiana Community Technical College System here this afternoon to just, one, show our support for this policy. Thank Dr. Denley and the academic leaders for their work that they did to come together and collaborate on an opportunity to really embrace the short-term and workforce training opportunities and credentials as part of the work. And the policy that was mentioned before you, we believe takes that step towards the right direction in adding those short-term credentials to the academic policy, which again then allows Board of Regents in our state to begin occurring and reviewing the work that the system of LCTCS has done over the last 25 years. While the traditional, as we like to say at academic policies, really focused on credit students and their academic journeys, the workforce training programs play that crucial role in promoting the comprehensive and inclusiveness of our educational landscape. And things around the skill development for employment, working with our business and industry partners to understand their needs, their workforce opportunities, and our opportunity to build those education and training programs that align directly to those high-wage, high-demand credentials and allow our students to enter into the workforce is key for that and is paramount for our mission. This also not only addresses those short-term industry needs, but those long-term needs. Programs around IT, transportation, healthcare, construction, manufacturing. This continues to allow us to build policy around making sure that we're able to meet those high-wage, high-demand markets, but the careers of our future and preparing students today so our industry can continue to grow. And promoting that the ability for our students to not only take these courses in person, but that online delivery format, as you see traditionally in credit-bearing programs, this begins to also open up opportunities so we can meet students where they are across the state, families and communities, and really take individuals from maybe unemployed or underemployed to our middle class as we continue to grow our economy. So again, just thank you for the opportunity to collaborate. Thank you again, Dr. Denley, and especially our academic and education team at LCCS for their work.
Thanks so much for those words. I do also want to point out, as well as the partnership with LCTCS, we certainly have also had conversations with the other two-year institutions across the state. Of course, everyone knows LSUE and SUSLA too are part of the two-year family, and so we again have also had conversation with them as we have created this policy, as we have with the four-year institutions as well. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for those comments. Any questions?
I have a quick comment while we're on this topic. I see in the audience some folks that have traveled a long way from that community. Rick Bateman, Chancellor of Bossier Parish Community College, and Miss Dr. Jada Spillers from Northwest Louisiana Technical College, which has campuses in Minden and Shreveport. And I want to acknowledge them while we're on the topic, while they're here. I know they've come a long way, and thank you for what you're doing in that area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will be very happy to hear from both
Yes,
of them
we're
a
gonna
little
hear from
later
both
in
of them
the,
today,
later in
yes.
the agenda. Yeah, absolutely. I did want to, just as one important detail that I omitted to say, that it is also the case that, of course, we want to very much encourage our extension services, agricultural extension, to be a vibrant part of this, and so they are appropriately included in this policy to make sure that their important work with farmers and agriculture is appropriately treated. So thank you. Sorry about that.
All right, any other questions, comments?
The impact is exactly to encourage them to do that more, and intended to be so. Yeah, yes, thank you. Yeah, so senior staff recommends approval of the revisions to Policy 215 that include adding the workforce training and validated skills and learning definitions, and also renaming the policy itself to include validated skills and learning in the title.
Is there a motion to approve? So moved by Dr. Tarver, second? Second by Regent Arbery. Any other questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Dr. Denley, is there any other business?
There is not.
Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn? Regent Arbery, second.
Second.
Regent Williams-Brown. All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Regent Sterling. Last up before lunch is our Planning, Research, and Performance Committee. I'd like to ask Regent Williams-Brown to please call this committee to order.
I'd like to call the Planning, Research, and Performance Committee to order. Ms. Britton, will you call the roll?
Yes. Regent Williams-Brown.
Here.
Regent Aubrey.
Here.
Regent Cordell. Regent David. Regent Levy. Regent Sterling.
Here.
Regent Orr. We have a quorum.
We will now move to item 3, the consent agenda. Courtney, please proceed.
All right. First on the consent agenda, we have our academic licensure items. We have 3 renewal applications from National University, Reach University, and Relate Graduate School of Education. We also do have 2 cessation of conditional licenses, the Business, Humanities, Science, and Ethics University, USA, and Diance University. Both of those were domiciled in New Orleans and had no enrolled students, so there's no need for any teach-outs for those 2 universities. The second item on consent agenda are recommendations from the Proprietary Schools Advisory Commission. We have 6 change of ownership applications, all done under one single change of ownership, a single Unitech Training Academy. But as you know, or so most of you know, we do license individual campuses, so they count as 6 change of ownerships. We also had 2 initial applications from Inspire Coding Consulting and Med-Era Technical Institute. And we had 22 renewal applications for existing schools. Senior staff recommends approval of items on the consent agenda and is open to any questions.
Madam Chair, I offer the motion to we adopt or approve the consent agenda items as recommended.
Thank you. Any discussion, any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Is there any other business to come before the Planning, Research, and Performance Committee?
There is not. I will not get in the way of your lunch.
Hearing none.
I move that we adjourn this committee.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Regent Arbery. Second? Thank you, Regent Cordell. Any discussion, any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. We are adjourned.
Nicely done. Thank you. Members, we're now going to break for a quick lunch in the Thomas Jefferson Room C behind us, and we'll return here.
5:08. On the employee email.
We walk in the room.
It works.
I'm logging 5 times today.
All right, members, I'd like to ask you to wind down lunch, and let's see, do we have enough, Doreen, to get going,
We
you
have
think?
enough to get going.
All right, awesome. I'd like to call the June Board of Regents meeting to order. Members, remember that we're being live streamed, so turn your microphones on when you're recognized to speak and speak directly into the microphone so our virtual audience can hear you. And I'll ask Doreen, please, to call the roll.
Regent Aubrey, Regent Cordell, Regent Creed, Regent David, Regent Finley, Regent Levy, Regent May, Regent Meir, Regent Orr, Regent Pryor, Regent Seal, Regent Solomon, Regent Sterling, Regent Temple, Regent Weil, Regent Williams-Brown. You have a quorum.
Awesome. Thank you, Doreen. Next up is public comments. Doreen, are there any public comments?
No.
Hearing none, we'll ask for any additional public comments under other business. Members, you've received a copy of the April 24 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion, please, to approve these minutes? Motion. Regent Levy, second, please.
Second.
Second by Regent Cordell. Any discussion or any questions? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. And any opposed, saying nay. Okay, motion passes. Minutes are approved. We'll move on to the chair's comments. So first, as is our tradition, we always start our meeting first by hearing from our student leader. And so we're so happy to welcome our new student member to our board. You saw her sworn in twice now today. And we are thrilled to have Kennedy Orr, who is a Chicago native and is studying agriculture business at Southern University and A&M College. Kennedy serves as the Student Government Association president of Southern University of Baton Rouge. So Kennedy, we are so looking forward to serving with you. Regent Orr is assigned to the following committees: Academic and Student Affairs, Facility and Property, Legislative, Artificial Intelligence, and Planning, Research, and Performance. And Kennedy, I know that you will have a full report of what's going on for us at our next meeting, but if you'd like to share any initial comments, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Once again, just super excited to be here and get to work with you all. I've already enjoyed myself today, learned so much, and seeing you all's dedication and commitment to ensuring that our illustrious campuses are accounted for and taken care of, and taking the right steps to make sure that education is bright here in Louisiana. So I'm just very excited to be a part of what's to come, and I look forward to working with you all, and thank you all again for just being so welcoming.
Absolutely. Well, Kennedy, remember, you are a full-fledged Board of Regents member. Never hesitate to speak up and vote with your convictions, and we're really grateful that you're here to offer your perspectives. So thank you. Regents, we recently hosted the LAHEC Annual Professional Development Summit. On the topic of alphabet soup, LAHEC is the Louisiana Association of Higher Ed Coalition, and that summit was held on May 22nd. Last month was Mental Health Awareness Month, and we know that mental health is a very integral part of the overall wellness of our students. A study by the Lumina Foundation found that 55% of students who considered stopping out of college cited emotional stress as the main factor for leaving, 55%. Commissioner Reed addressed over 200 mental health professionals and student support counselors at this two-day professional development summit that was hosted by Regents and our Louisiana Department of Health partners last month. And we're very proud to partner with LAHEC every year to offer such a wonderful and very needed event. Speaking of events, Regents was proud to honor our state's future educators on National Teacher Appreciation Day at the Old State Capitol. Public and private universities from across the state nominated their top students from their teacher preparation programs to be recognized at this event, where State Superintendent Dr. Cade Brumley and BESE Chair Ronnie Morris and Teacher of the Year Kylie Altier shared words of support and inspiration. There were 45 future educators, including 5 amazing high school students, who were all interested in being teachers that were recognized. So congratulations to the staff for all their excellent work. And we want to thank Regent Cordell for attending. We're so thankful to have engaged board members year-round. Members, we are thinking about the family of LSU Board of Supervisors member, Supervisor Richard Zuschlag, today as his funeral for this wonderful businessman and LSU board member. It's why our LSU system reps are not with us today. We had the pleasure of spending a nice evening just under a year ago at Regent Blake David's home, and Supervisor Zuschlag was in attendance. And so I'd ask Blake, if you don't mind sharing a few words of recognition about Mr. Zuschlag.
Thank you so much, Gary. Richard was such an amazing guy. 76 years old, just passed away. He diagnosed with cancer earlier this year, and went much faster than we thought he would. You could say so much about Richard Zuschlag. He's such a brilliant business person. Started his Acadian ambulance companies as a hearse driver 51 years ago, before the ambulance system really even existed. Such a savvy politician, but I'll always think of him as an amazingly kind heart who would find a school in the worst part of Lafayette and say, we're going to fix this, and he would get behind it and make it and change it. He's very active in higher education and all levels of education. He's the kind of person that when we needed funds for a homeless shelter, he was the one who spearheaded that. And just one of the kindest, most philanthropic and good-hearted people in our community, in our state. He was known nationwide and has won every business award and every philanthropic award and community service award you could ever get. So big loss. Miss Elaine and his 3 kids, Blaze, Blair, and Beth, are all suffering right now. So keep them in your prayers, and thank you for recognizing him. He was the current Board of Supervisor for LSU. I think Alex Box Stadium featured maybe this exact picture on their scoreboard for a while. So keep him in your thoughts and prayers. And he was a good example for all of us to want to be service and community oriented. And I find that in his entire company. Katie, I'm his lawyer too. It's a family. It's a family environment. Everyone has a voice in that company. It's a beautiful thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Regent David. He was very generous, and thank you so much for sharing those remarks.
Yeah,
Regent
Chairman
Aubrey.
Sullivan. Yeah, I will be remiss, and I was surprised but very glad that this recognition for Mr. Zuschlag is offered before this group. And I had known him when I began working at AT&T. We have a very close relationship with Acadian Ambulance, and one of our largest wireless customers. But last year when I was appointed president, and he reached out, and he said that he wanted to visit, and I left immediately to go see him. And from that time, he was very active. We talked every other week. He was the consummate professional, very concerned about not only his customers, but making sure that I had what I needed at the level of respect. He opened doors, invited me. And so, when I went to the memorial on yesterday in Lafayette, and they passed out this little card, and we signed the book to everybody got, and I'll just share. It said Z's P's: positive attitude, persistence, patience, passion, politeness, preparation, pride, practice, prosperity, and finally prayer. And this really sums him up, what I felt with his life, what it meant. He's a statesman. He's a true Louisianian. He worked across party lines, whether it was our new governor or the past governor, for the good of Louisiana. He was the kind of guy that you could count on. And so everything that Regent David said has summed it up, and I just have my own personal experience with him, particularly over the last 2 years. He's a mentor in the leadership of the private sector, and I really thank him for what he meant to me.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Chair Solomon, if I could just say a few words.
Yes, please.
Richard was on our advisory board for Entergy Louisiana. He is a person who could not be a participant. He was a person that he was if he was involved, he was highly engaged. Sometimes you had to pull him back a little bit. He was so engaged. That's why I was surprised when I saw the card yesterday as well that it included patience. But I mean that with all due respect. But more than anything, I feel fortunate to have counted Richard as a friend, because he is an absolute gem and has been to everyone that has met him, particularly for the communities in which he lived and for the state of Louisiana. So we're all fortunate to have had him.
Well, I'm sorry, Commissioner Reed, and I missed y'all yesterday because we were there yesterday as well. It was the biggest crowd I've ever seen for a wake in my life, and he was a very faithful person, and that church was very full.
Thank you all very much. So moving on, in April, you may remember that Regent Seal suggested that regents create a special committee of the board specifically related to artificial intelligence and its advancements. Dr. Denley's with us today to present an update on that. So Tristan, if you please proceed on the requested bylaw change, the committee recommendations, and this month's AI update. The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, so as Chair Solomon said, last year there was the request to begin a new committee on artificial intelligence, and so we sent out the appropriate changes to the bylaws to you as board members some days ago, and certainly they were part of your board materials. So senior staff recommend the approval of the revision to the bylaws that introduce this new committee on artificial intelligence.
Thank you, Tristan. Members, you've heard this recommendation to approve the bylaws revision to create this committee. Is there a motion to approve this item? Regent David, is there a second? Regent Aubrey. Any discussion or any questions? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, saying nay. Motion passes, and we've appointed the following Regents members to serve on this newly created committee. Regent Seal will chair the committee, and the committee members are Regent David Aubrey, Regent Cordell, Regent David, Regent May, Regent Sterling, and Regent Orr. So thanks for each of you agreeing to serve. We look forward to the discussions and the upcoming ideas. Tristan, I believe you've got an update for us, a brief update on AI today, and so if so, please proceed.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, really looking forward to working with committee members on this new committee. Part of what we need to do as we do this is even to flesh out, so what are the ideas that we need to think through? What are the, this is clearly a space which is moving incredibly quickly, but it's also a space which has been, it's sort of one of those things which has instantly appeared over the last 20 years, if that makes any sense. You know, it's one of those things which has been around for a while and now suddenly is with us again in a really important way. So what I wanted to do was just to say, just to dig a little deeper from the presentation I did last month, just to think through, well, across the nation right now, what are the discussions that are happening from a policy perspective, from a practice perspective, and all of that. And in many ways, just to sort of to put that space around us as we think through, you know, what is the role of a coordinating board in higher education as we think through that role when it comes to this new space of artificial intelligence. So the first thing is around SREB. So I think we focused last month on the fact that Louisiana is represented on the Artificial Intelligence Commission at SREB. Myself and Chair Morris from BESE are our representative, and Representative Hughes is also on that group. That commission is now representatives from all of the 19 states that are part of SREB. All of the southern states, all the way up to Delaware, are representative as part of the SREB family, and that work is the folk who are on that group are really from all kinds of different backgrounds. So there are legislators, there are educators, there are folk who are involved in the IT industry, the people who are involved in all kinds of different industries, folk in transportation, folk in healthcare, all of that are represented across this space. And in many ways, the work of that group is sort of divided into two broad sort of categories of work. That on the one hand, we're charged to try to understand, well, what does the policy framework landscape look like across the scope of SREB? And of course, as I think as hopefully you know, SREB looks at K-12 across higher education. So K-50, I suppose, or something like that. It's, K-12 and then all of higher education. And so there are some folk who are, and I'm part of that group, to think through, so what are the policies that need to be understood and thought through when it comes to artificial intelligence in higher education? And we've certainly talked about a few of those, and clearly, as we're thinking this through for ourselves, some of that clearly lives at the campus level, and some of it clearly lives at the management board level, and others of it will live with us as we have that conversation. And then the other piece of broad category, a piece of work there at SREB is looking through, well, what are the aspects of instruction? Like, so what does it look like when you're in the classroom? What does it look like when you're in the elementary classroom? What does it look like when you're in the graduate classroom? What does it look like in all of those different settings, in all kinds of different disciplines? What kinds of questions does that raise? And then the other piece of the other piece around SREB is in many ways to think through, well, what is even the definition of artificial intelligence? And I think that's part of what we will also have to grapple through. It could be this, it could be that, and we're going to have to think to ourselves, where would we like to lean in? What is the focus of this work that you would like to explore? So that's SREB. I also kind of wanted to point you in the direction of Teach AI. So Teach AI is a coalition that is led by Code.org. You may remember Code.org as part of our conversation around computer science education. So they've been a national champion in the space of computer science education, very heavily involved in Arkansas when Arkansas was doing their work to embed computer science into their high school curriculum, and very much involved in that work here in Louisiana too. But they have partnered with the International Society for Technology and Education, the Khan Academy, so SOCAN's organization, and even the World Economic Forum, to try to think through from their perspective then what are questions, ideas around artificial intelligence, again, for us to sort of think through. I came across this sort of two-edged sword of artificial intelligence that they put out, which I thought was very thought-provoking. All the things across the top are, broadly speaking, the kind of, the sparkly objects, the new things that now we can, create new differentiated instruction for students in a very personalized kind of way. We might be able to have a whole new ways of designing assessment and feedback in timely fashion. I think we've all known the frustration of we're trying to learn something and we put it in, and then it takes a little while for the feedback to come back, and when it comes back, maybe it's not exactly to us, maybe more general. We have the ability now to be able to personalize tutoring and assistance in ways that we've not been able to before, and certainly all kinds of ways in which this new technology might aid creativity. I was sharing just earlier that with Reed Cordell, a website that I came across called Suno.com, and this is not an advert for Suno.com. I guess it is going to end up being that, I suppose. But this technology literally generates music. So if you're interested in music, you can go in and you can type in a little generator. We could create a new a new theme song for the Board of Regents, and we could just type it in there. 30 seconds later, you get a song, and we can say what style and what instruments, and hey presto, you have this. So all kinds of ways in which creativity can now happen in ways we've never thought of before. And then school management and efficiency, all kinds of ways in which that can be introduced into our practices and processes. But then they've also presented sort of the other side of the double edge, that, as well as, differentiated content, well, this new generative AI, it hallucinates, right? It wants to please, so if it doesn't know, it'll just make it up. That, as well as creating this new personalized assessment, well, there may actually be a sort of a diminished agency when it comes to those who are being the arbiter of quality, or when it comes to creativity, maybe we might be guilty of an over-reliance on using those technologies, and will that have the same kind of impact on critical thinking that perhaps the calculator has had on times tables, let's say. So there's, with every advantage, there's a plausible warning, so to say. So again, from the standpoint of thinking out the things we might explore. And similarly, when it comes to Teach AI, they have a sort of a suggested exhortation about how it is they think organizations like yourselves might be trying to champion work, to think through the fact that, we do, in fact, want to foster leadership in artificial intelligence. We would like to build that capacity across our state. We think we all want to know more, and we certainly would, again, like to try to champion literacy in AI, and guidance certainly would be important. Building a statewide capacity, and certainly supporting innovation. These seem, again, this is not an exclusive list, but a list that Code.org came, and it really seemed as though it's a good list for us, at least to begin with, about the kinds of work we might want to undertake. And then the last example I wanted to give was an international example. And again, just not necessarily speaking for this or against this, but being informative to say this is out there. The European Union is on the cusp of actually enacting legislation when it comes to the use and appropriate use of AI. And they have created this kind of risk pyramid where they're sort of saying, okay, look, depending on what the use case might be, there will be some progressive level of accountability, some progressive level of regulation that would be incumbent on being able to use this. So, if you're trying to create a song on suno.com, well, go do it, absolutely. But if you're trying to create a technology that automates doing assessment based on biometric information, probably we need to talk a little bit more about that. And so, again, there is a lot to that legislation, but again, just as I say, in the spirit of letting you know the kinds of things that are out there, wanted to at least put that on your radar. So today was just a short update. I'm hoping that we will have our first meeting, hopefully at the August meeting, where we will convene our new group. But happy to answer any questions that you have today, or certainly take any responses you have to the creation of the council or committee.
Thank you, Tristan. Members, any questions?
Just a comment, really, and that being that, we had a conversation in the joint meeting earlier about bandwidth, access to bandwidth, and so forth. One of the critical issues we're going to have to solve is make sure we have access to the technology. I think it's going to be very promising, but it could leave some folks behind if we don't have critical access to those tools.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, all of these advantages are only advantages for people who can actually access the technology. Exactly right.
Thank you, Regent Meg. Any other discussion or questions for Tristan?
Tristan, just a quick question. Is there anybody who's kind of teaching? I noticed that they had, AI literacy, who's started teaching how to access, and basically so that more people are competent?
Yeah, so there are a variety of, and I'm certainly happy to collect that, a more extensive list from our campuses. But yeah, a large number of the campuses have created really a variety of different fora for this. So some have begun to actually embed this into degree curricula. You can imagine there are particular fields where that's really important. But certainly this is actually, a number of the institutions have created a variety of experiences as part of continuing education. Exactly. And so, and certainly the action you took a little earlier around the validated skills and learning is really going to come to fore about that. I know I've talked to Dr. Haggerty at LSU, he's very interested in this idea of prompt engineering. And so, are there ways in which we can help people really become much better informed about, well, you have this new generative AI tool in front of you. How do you type in, what do you type into it to get it to do what it is you want it to do? And how can you learn how to do that better? So yeah, all of the above.
I mean, from an efficiency perspective in everyday task, and I don't know how many of you all use it every day, I do. It's a game changer and a time saver. in mundane things of a letter of recommendation or, I mean, some of the things that you sometimes spend a lot of time doing that, you know, now takes
2 seconds. Yeah. Yeah. That's right. It's like everything else. It's a new tool to learn how to use. That's right. That's right.
Maybe the committee meeting is going to be with laptops. And we can like practice and figure out how to do all this stuff.
I know this is part of Regent Seal's vision is for the, you know, for it to be part of the, you know, part of the promoting literacy and building capacity is for us together as well as for, you know, for the state as a whole. So yeah, absolutely.
Tristan, thank you very much. That was our inaugural AI report.
Thank you.
Moving on, we're going to move into our momentum moment. Joining us today to present are the chancellors from 3 of our LCTCS institutions, and we are delighted to have them all here. I'll ask them to join Tristan at the tables at the front.
Thanks so much. As they're coming up, I just kind of first of all, want to say a huge thank you to them, and I believe Osmar is here as well from the Workforce Commission. Huge thank you to them for all of the work that they do and the work they're going to share, but also kind of wanted to connect the dots a little bit around the connection with momentum, because I think we talk a lot about student success from an academic perspective, about, you know, passing the classes, but I certainly don't want board members to miss the connection with the fact that from our perspective, success is an ongoing success, right? So we want it to be the case that not only do graduates actually earn their credential, but that credential actually leads on to lucrative employment and ways in which they can support their family. And so this work, where we're really able to join the dots and connect with apprenticeship work, so we can really make that connection between the classroom and the world of work, is just incredibly important. So with that, I will hand over to, who am I handing over to first?
I think I'm first.
Oh, good enough. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you so much, Commissioner Reed, Chair Solomon, members of the board. We really appreciate getting the opportunity to present to you today and share the exciting things that are happening in the North. And I got elected to go first. I think I drew the short straw, so here we go. So I'm very excited to share about our new plumbing program. It is the first in the state, especially with a community college, that has brought together both sides, union and non-union, those that are affiliated with the PHCC, which stands for, and I have to always look at it because it's long, the Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling Contractors of Louisiana. And this, of course, is in response to the estimated shortage of over 100,000 plumbers that will be taking place by the year 2028. So as you can imagine, there is a huge concern about how they will fill those roles. And so we were very happy to start those talks with PHCC, and that really started working as well even with the high schools. And so as we progressed in our talks, they had their own nationally approved curriculum that they were willing to share. It's considered 4 years. And within that curriculum, we were able to take year 1 and 2 and build that into an 18-month technical diploma. That also gave the students opportunities to either choose a union or non-union apprenticeship so they could go to work making money while they were going to school. What a wonderful way to really jumpstart a career and you just get your feet wet in that field to see if this is what you want to do. And just big ways of supporting a family as you do that. So we were granted permission again to use that curriculum. The students, while working through those first 2 years of the curriculum, is what will complete that technical diploma. They will complete 4,000 of those on-the-job training hours. And I'm a little off on that, I know. I get excited and kind of squirrel on this, but I'll give you the rundown of this. After the 2 years, the students are eligible to sit for the tradesman license. So if they want to stop after those 2 years then they can actually go to work. They still have to work under a journeyman, but they can do some of those basic things like installing, altering, repair, maintaining, and residential plumbing. But if they decide to, they can go on after those 2 years of that technical diploma, come back to us for year 3 and 4 for the remaining hours, which is a total of 7,000 hours under workforce. And they can attain the remaining hours. We serve as that facilitator to help them complete out those hours that they need to do the academic side. And then they're eligible to sit for a journeyman license. The benefit of having us work with them is that they're not on their own going through that curriculum while they're working. They have an actual teacher in a classroom that will teach the skills that they're needing, a person that comes from the industry, teaching the skills that they need, and also putting that together with the shop activities that help them hone the skills. So what I like to say is they don't go out and embarrass us. They actually will have the skills, then they're able to go out and show what they can actually do and be a valuable employee to that organization. So that's pretty much what the setup of the program design is. And we talked about the extended time. I also want to point out the high school opportunities. If you're 16 years old, you can start this through Jumpstart in high school. And so I work very hard with our local high schools to design this to crosswalk a curriculum. And we're going to have this on Fast Forward. That's where we're going. We're trying to push this to get on the Fast Forward plan of action. So the students in high school can really, again, jumpstart that and get through this while in high school, keep going, but come back to the college and finish. We're piloting that this summer with one of our local school districts. We are working with them. We have 6 students in that first cohort. The teacher told me yesterday, I said, tell me how they're doing because I've got to go talk about this. And he said, they're doing great. He said, you're always worried about high school. He said, but they're doing a great job and they're looking forward to have an opportunity to be placed to start working with some of these organizations. The one thing that I really appreciate with PHCC is they understood with high school, you can't always get the work hours you need while you're in high school. Things interfere, and they have things like sports, other activities, other classes that they have to take. So they're very lenient with that high school portion where they can just earn the hours that you can, but they're going to bank those hours for them. And so they'll eventually catch up with that. Boy, that's really flexible. That is a wonderful way to start these high school students off and not let them, just struggle with catching up on those hours. So they're going to work with them on that. So pretty much, again, that's the whole gamut, 18 months to, I tell them 18 months is a glimmer of your life for the rest of your life, for a wonderful career for the rest of your life. And so we're very excited to launch this in August with the full gamut. And I hope that if you're up in the area, our Shreveport representative right here, come by and see us. Now, I see we have one from Athens as well. You're right there in that region. But all of you, you're welcome. Please come and visit and see what we're doing in the North. We're very excited about it. And we appreciate your time today. Thank you. Questions? Okay, great.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm Ashley Ellis. I got a promotion to Chancellor today, so I'm going to embrace that. But actually, I'm the pre-educator program director at Delta Community College, and my role is I'm a faculty member director who teaches the courses and runs the program. So I get to talk to you all today about our new program. It's a Registered Teacher Apprenticeship program, and I know we talked about that in the joint meeting earlier. I do want to make note that this program is different because that program is a residency model for the 1 year of the residency that teachers are going through. This is a full beginning to end teacher apprenticeship model. So we will take teachers from start, you enrolling the community college will take you to the finish line. Not we as Delta, but we as our partnership with ULM will take you to the finish line to get your bachelor's degree in elementary education, which we're really excited to offer. So it is an accelerated model, meaning that it takes 4 years to get a bachelor's degree in a traditional way, but we're going to do that in 3. which is very appealing to a lot of our teachers, specifically in North Louisiana, Northeast Louisiana, where I serve. A lot of the teachers that are in this program, or teacher candidates, are actually paraprofessionals or high school graduates. I do have 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, and then I have everything in between. So I have 18 to 52 in my current program. We have 16 students already enrolled. We've already finished a year of this work. They have done amazing. Just to say, it's really hard to be in your 40s and do college algebra for the first time in a long time. And these students have excelled. Most of them have 3.5 and higher GPAs. And just to say, to be that vulnerable and do something hard like this at that point in your life is pretty amazing. So I'm very proud of them. This program actually offers a full certification, and future employment is our goal. So these apprentices are working in schools. Like I said, we have two models. We have what we call a teacher apprentice, which they're contract employees and they work 20 hours a week, and they get paid as a contract employee. They don't necessarily work a full day. They leave at 12. They don't get benefits per se. And then we have the traditional paraprofessional role, who actually does work a 40-hour week. They were already employed in the district. But they are both enrolled in this program as teacher apprentices. They will earn while they learn, assuming the paras are already earning, but they get an additional stipend to be in this program. The students who are teacher apprentices, the traditional way, they're getting paid $16 an hour in the role they're in, which is pretty amazing as a teacher apprentice. I know I went for 4 years and got not anything to go to school and be a future teacher. I worked at the Gap. So I'm excited to see these teacher candidates be actively working towards becoming teachers, and their relevant work experience will be life-changing, not only for them as candidates, but for what they'll bring in value to the classroom. 3 years as an apprentice before you ever are the teacher of record, we've never done that before. We've really never had people be in a school in that capacity in a support role for that long and become teachers that we've supported. So I'm really proud of that. Obviously, they get on-the-job competency-based learning. So we are a registered apprenticeship program. We were just approved by the Louisiana Workforce Commission on May 20th as well. That seemed like the magical date for apprentice approvals. And so I think one of the things that I really want to note is that we have a really great partnership with a lot of people. We obviously have a partnership with our four-year institution, ULM. So I take them for the first 18 months of the program, and they take them for the second 18 months of the program, and those teachers finish in 3 years. The other big partnerships are the districts. The districts have to trust us to invest in something like this and trust us to get those teachers to the finish line. It takes 3 years to get through a program. And so the whole model here is really designed to be a grow your own program. What we found is in the rural districts, people would come and start a job, but they would leave to go to bigger communities because now they got their experience. And these rural districts were struggling not just to get talent, but to retain that talent. And so this program will really help them grow within their own community, their future teacher population. And I think the other exciting part about this is that we've designed the program to support those students. It is not a boxed approach to the traditional four-year program. This is really meeting them where they are. These students don't come to live classes on campus. They receive virtual synchronous instruction. So we really take the hybrid model approach, which is life-changing when you live an hour and a half from a campus and you're a mom of 2 kids and you already work 40 hours a week. And so we've really, revamped and reboxed a program to say, what is it you need to become a teacher? We're going to make that happen. And the other thing I believe is I don't think we have a teacher shortage. I think we've had a program shortage. It's not that we don't have people who want to be teachers. We haven't necessarily brought them a program that they could fit into and become and acquire what they needed to become a teacher. So I'm really proud to offer this for them. I think the last thing that I want to mention. Well, maybe two more things. We do have 7 district partners. So I have 16 apprentices right now in 7 different districts. It's a lot of work to partner with 7 different districts as well as a university partner. So this is a collaborative approach that takes a lot of work to finagle and get everybody on the same page. But the districts have partnered with us, they believe in this work, and they're just pleased to see that we're doing something different to help support them, especially in rural Louisiana. And I think another piece is our students start working on day 1. As soon as they enter our program, they start. They work 30 weeks out of the year if they're in the traditional program each semester, and then they get the break, and then they come back the next semester. My students are currently taking 18 hours this summer, so they need your prayers. But they're doing well. We anticipate having the 16 graduate this December and move on to ULM and start the second half of this program, which will be a momentous moment for many of them, but also for these districts who are really relying on us to help produce quality teachers. So I also wanted to mention, in your traditional apprenticeship that we're offering in other areas, is that the residency is about 2,000 hours of on-the-job training. This program offers 6,000 hours of on-the-job training because they are in the program for 3 years. So that sets us apart from the traditional residency model that we're hearing about. This is definitely more intensive, but I also think that this will take our teachers to another level. And I think that's it.
There we go. Chair Solomon, Commissioner Reed, thank you for having us. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't reciprocate on the shout out from Regent Pryor, hailing from my neck of the woods, and if I didn't also recognize Regent Aubrey. We've done a lot of wonderful work together over the years, and it's become more and more important, that work. And then I think if Dr. Sullivan was here, I think he'd be upset at me if I didn't recognize our chair, our Madam Chair, Mount LCTCS Board. And then I was going to leave out all that protocol, but then I thought I practiced it, so maybe I should go ahead and do it. Again, thank you for the opportunity. I am proud of the work that's going on in North Louisiana to innovate around Earn While You Learn programs. We are bringing up the rear. Our program is going to launch this fall, but it is a truly innovative program. It will be the first of its kind in the state of Louisiana. It is an LPN to RN apprenticeship program. BESE was approved by the State Board of Nursing to deliver this apprenticeship program as a pilot. They had us identify an industry partner. That was easy because we've been working with Willis-Knighton over the last 5 years on a worker-friendly model. But this apprenticeship takes it to another level. These are full-time LPNs working on the med-surg floor. They're going to receive instruction and oversight from a preceptor that will be paid by Willis-Knighton, as well as a clinical instructor paid by BESE. The way this has been organized, again with the curriculum and a distance education model, we'll be able to help students get through the clinical portion of this program in under a year. There will be some on-site work. We're going to do some testing on campus, but we also have a wonderful simulation lab on our campus, and we want our students to benefit from those learning opportunities in that lab. I think, as I was listening to my colleagues, as they talked about, there's so much that is similar about the things that we're doing in North Louisiana, but one of the things that jumped out at me was partnership. Obviously, there's partnerships involved with apprenticeships. That's the way that they're built. But I think this one in particular is made possible because of an alignment of leadership and focus. And I want to recognize Dr. Wendy Palermo, who's in the room here, for the work that she's done to help drive innovation in the healthcare sector. We wouldn't be talking about this program if she hadn't provided a lot of the support that she's provided. So I'll pause right there, and I hope you have some questions for us.
I'll start off, and I want to thank you all for being here. I don't know if we had so many people from Northwest Louisiana ever at a Board of Regents meeting.
And we're going to make sure it never happens.
Right, and I want to note that the new LCTS board chair, Tim Hardy, I was hoping he would be here today, but like Dr. Reed's father played football with my father at Grambling, Attorney Tim Hardy's aunt is my godmother. And so it was a small world. And he's also from Shreveport originally, I want to say, even though y'all know him from being here in Baton Rouge. And I had to smile when I saw a legislative bill to study a community college in Union, Bienville, and Claiborne parishes. And I was wondering, is there a Walmart in those three parishes? Much less the community, but we have fine community colleges throughout already, North Louisiana, Northeast and Northwest. And I'll talk to a Representative Young, who's a young attorney in Shreveport, about his what he's trying to accomplish there. But I wanted to, we saw a slide earlier in the first part of the meetings with the BESE board, and it said something about Southeastern is establishing a program, and I had to ask, what is that? Because it didn't say Southeastern Louisiana University. So there is a disconnect, even just reading a slide of different parts of the state, that we would not know if a slide just says Southeastern did this or that. We don't even tell, it should be Southeastern Louisiana University. Now we know. I didn't know it was at a high school or whatever. But we have such good programs in North Louisiana, and you guys are doing a great job from Monroe to Bossier. And I wanted to mention, I saw the accelerated model, because we have to look forward in the future. And students, it's like getting a car lease. They say 4-year lease, and you're like, oh, that's a long time. Like college, a 3-year lease sounds a whole lot better to get out of if it's not working, or to get through it quickly. The accelerated model, that's just the way to go. Because kids today, as soon as you start talking about a prolonged number of years, you turn off so many in this day and age. When I was young, college, 4 or 5 years, that was just expected. These days, such a segment of the population, they just want to get out and get to working, make their own money. In 4 to 5 years, that was normal to our age of college, is like, there's like talking to a spaceship to the young people today. So, and then you get them into your community college, anticipating a 2-year program, and then you're offering, hey, if you stay 1 more year, you can get a bachelor's degree through a partnership. And that's just a great method that I would love to see, it's a great model throughout the state, because we have such a problem in our state with young people that are lost. They get out and they turn into crime, and just not the segment of good kids, that we have, and they go off to college, to LSU or Tulane. But I'm talking about those young people that you're seeing on the news every night, robbing people, selling dope, running around with guns, aimless at 18, 19, 20 years old. And they need to be in these programs to learn a skill, so they can earn a wage, they can support their children, support themselves without going into crime and other things. So I just love what you guys are doing. You're making college, and not only college, but technical skills were available to people. And then, like you said, with the accelerated model, get them onto a bachelor's degree, and through these partnerships. And I just want to thank you all for enduring that drive down here to present that to this board. And thank you for all that you guys are doing, and the community colleges around the state that are so important with a segment of our young people, an increasing segment that just don't have the financial wherewithal, or their parents didn't go to college and they don't really have that model at home of what it takes to finish a 4-year college, and just get them to BESE or Sewella or Delta or all these great community colleges, get their foot into college. Hey, and let's work with them from there. So thank you.
Thank you, members. Other questions or comments?
Just one other comment. One
Please.
of the things, and Tristan, I think this was under Malin's work. When I first joined Board of Regents, there was research done on how many nurses we need to potentially produce.
5,000.
And it was 6,000, somewhere between
6,000.
5,000 and 6,000. And so I want us to look back and determine, maybe, and our economists who did the research can tell us if 3 years is reasonable. Like, when would we hit a 3 or 4 year mark to now go back and understand, with all of the investment, what have we produced and kind of what that trajectory is, and try to begin to develop a longitudinal model to really help guide our, these are all great programs, lots of people are doing great things across the state that's innovative, but to try to help get to the data of, is there a number that, because I think it's going to take us about a decade to recover from the impact of COVID on the clinical workforce. And so to understand how our work impacts that I just would think would be powerful, and we could really make a difference there. We could.
Happy to do that. Happy to do that.
Thank you, Regent Sterling.
I did want to make sure that, so we have a representative from the Workforce Commission, Osmo Padilla, and so.
Sure. I certainly don't want to take away from the great work that's happening, that, you know, the folks actually doing the work. But good afternoon, everyone. Osmo Padilla. I serve as the Assistant Secretary for Workforce Development at the Louisiana Workforce Commission. I've been in this role for about 3 months, so just enough to be dangerous, but still working my way around. But no, certainly excited to kind of share our support of all the work happening along the I-20 corridor, particularly just in apprenticeships overall. I think as Secretary Showen and I kind of really dig into the work that we want to embark on over the next several years, apprenticeship is a significant portion of our workforce strategy. You know, particularly for residents across the state, but even more so for students, right? A lot of times financial barriers exist to actually engaging with the world of work. And so when we can expand opportunities to provide real-world training, real-world kind of hands-on opportunities, all while getting paid to do so, is certainly a winning strategy. And so we are deeply committed to continuing to work with our LCTCS partners, our colleges, and really partners across the state to grow innovative models of apprenticeship, collaborative models of apprenticeship that really can, you know, accelerate the work that I think we're all trying to get to, which is, you know, getting students jobs in a quicker fashion, as quickly as we can, and residents across the state. So just here to share our support and excitement for all the good work, and obviously we will continue to be partners across the state. So
thank you so much, and we echo that. We are very grateful for the partnership with you and your team, and we definitely see the work blurring the lines between workforce and higher ed more and more as we go forward. So thank you.
I wanted to follow up with Regent Pryor's comments about the acceleration piece. I think that really has been the selling point for the teacher model. A 4-year model is the traditional, and I do think I think having multiple models is probably the new conversation. In other industries, there's on and off ramps to industry and work, but in education, to be a certified teacher, there is none. You could be a para, you can work in other roles within a school, but those don't require degrees typically. And so the associate teacher has also been passed in legislation, so we have other ways to have a conversation about this work. Maybe we have another off-ramp at the associate degree side, and then they can start working towards their bachelor still through an apprenticeship model. I will tell you, many of my students have said things like, if I had this model 4 years ago, I would have already started. Not only because we're bringing it to them in their rural parts of the state and they don't have to come to us, but also because we've said we're accelerating because they're ready to get in those classrooms and start teaching students and be the teacher of record, but they just couldn't see their way to that finish line because it looks so far away. Now, let me tell you, they're taking 18 hours a semester, they're working summers, they're going to school. We still have 120 credit hours. We didn't magically erase anything. They're still doing all the work. They're just doing it at an accelerated pace, and that's not going to be for everyone. But for those that have committed to this program, they can see the light at the end of the tunnel because that year is kind of closer than it was, and I just really see this being another way for us to think about preparing teachers.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis.
Chairman Solomon, just
Sir,
question
Regent Aubrey.
piggyback to Ms. Ellis. What degree will the students complete? The ones, like you said, this fall from Louisiana Delta Community College. Secondly, do the school districts, you mentioned about 6 or 7 partners, do they help share in some of the costs? Many of them do get federal dollars for students to do that. And then how is the connectivity virtually, since you said that they're doing that, and if you said they got an hour to an hour and a half from their campuses mostly. Now, we'll acknowledge we are putting fiber in Bernice, Louisiana, which fits in that little radius. But are there any impediments along the lines?
Absolutely. I mean, I would say the biggest impediment was location, geography, and then access and the barriers of becoming a college student. And most of my students are first-generation college students. So they don't know those challenges, nor do they have time to go like maneuver all of that. And I will be very honest, I received a community congressional grant from Congresswoman Letlow to like explore all of this. I am their work school mom, I call myself. So with this 16 students, I remove those barriers. I get them registered. You know, they fill out they do a lot of the work on their own, but all of the challenges that most students experience going to college, I try to get all of that out of their way. And if they have a problem, they don't call the registrar's office, they don't call financial aid, they call me. And I take care of it. And I get them to the right people. We get on calls together, we fix it. That makes a difference to have someone to really remove the challenges. The other piece, when you mentioned the funding between the districts and myself, the districts are paying $11 for every hour, and my grant is paying a $5 for every hour. This, I could have paid for the whole thing, but I wanted a partnership with districts because they needed to invest as well. Absolutely. And they needed to know that when they're partnering these teachers with mentors, we're all investing in this together. I want them to succeed. I want the students to succeed. We all see the benefit, so we're doing this together. The good news is I was a BESE member. I was also an administrator, a principal in my previous life. And so now I just have really good relationships with those districts. And so there's a lot of trust there. And it takes trust to get districts to buy in to anything we're doing at the college or community college level. And I think that's made a lot of difference. You asked another question about, the Wi-Fi, broadband. Okay, I will be very honest, that's a challenge still.
Absolutely.
However, many of my students have used their school Wi-Fi. They've done some of the work while they're at school, or they've brought it to school campus, and they've sat in the parking lot and used the school Wi-Fi that they work at. Many times, though, they have had challenges, and I would say back to what we talked about in the joint meeting, just technology in general, having a laptop that works when you need it to work. When you're doing virtual anything, you know the challenges that come with just trying to get on a Teams call, and you're in a rural part of our state. You might get dropped off that call, and you got to join again. It's very frustrating. So I think those challenges still exist. They're very resilient. And again, I'm their life coach, so I tell them it's going to be okay. We're going to get through it. But I also meet with them once a week. They're not left alone to kind of float. Every Friday we have on-the-job training, obviously virtually. And sometimes I have to use that time to encourage. So I think this program or something this challenging while you're working, while you're being a mom or whatever your roles are outside of your work and your school, you kind of need somebody to kind of help carry you along. And that's the work I get to do. I'm so excited to get to do it. And the students, we've all said that we'll be at everyone's weddings and everyone's children's graduations and all the things because we're like a family. So I think a model like this has to be really planned out really well, and you have to have the right person who cares about getting people from the start to the finish. And I will be with them all the way through ULM.
Well, I just want to commend each of you. Definitely, we can hear the interest, the focus, and the passion. I'm only one member of this board, but if I could influence the funding formula model, I know that the chair had mentioned that earlier, I would increase and make it incentivized for these apprenticeship and these accelerated programs, because this is where the rubber meets the road. This is making an impact in those local communities. I'm from Shreveport too. You didn't know that. I know. I'm an at-large member. I claim Shreveport. My wife and I moved down here, but still live there too. But this is just phenomenal to see this work, and I appreciate the commissioner for certainly accepting our charge to bring these ideas and what some of the great things that are happening across our state. I expected Dr. Bateman to tell about this phenomenal project between talking about broadband and how we're training, but we're gonna bring that back next month. Don't bring it up today. But you're doing great work, and keep up the good work. I commend each and every one of you.
Thank you, Regent.
Let me ask this. First of all, Dr. Bateman, how many students do you have at BESE? I have to brag about.
We have 6,000 students enrolled as of, well, last fall our count was 6,000. We're going to be bigger than that this coming fall.
And this coming fall, how many you anticipating?
We're expecting 6,700.
Right. And I just wanted to show everybody how big that campus has grown. Dr. Spillers, you mentioned that you're in several high schools. And can you tell us which high schools you're in? And you have two campuses, right, in Minden and Shreveport.
I have 3.
Where's the third one?
Mansfield.
Mansfield. So that's 3 totally different.
Yes, sir.
Well, 2, I guess Mansfield and Minden are kind of similar. Shreveport is urbanish. Urban.
Our Minden and our Mansfield, a little more rural.
Rural.
Mansfield
urban.
definitely more rural. We also have kind of an offset of our Camp Minden, where we have a heavy equipment program and our CDL program run off that. And I always laugh on Camp Minden, it's very isolated, so if anybody gets hurt, we just bury them and move on. So they don't know.
What are things that you think that we could do as a Board of Regents or in higher education to get your programs into those urban schools to attract those young men especially and women into professions, legal professions where they can make lots of money, whether it's auto mechanics and bricklaying, plumbing, things with their hands that don't necessarily involve going off to a 4-year college. What can we do, and what schools are you in, and what do we need to do to
The high schools.
change that?
We work very closely across all 3 campuses with our DeSoto Parish schools, Red River down in Mansfield area. Minden, we have Webster, Claiborne, Bienville. Bienville and Claiborne actually send buses to the campus, and we're working on an early college model there for that. In Caddo Parish, we're very closely related with Caddo Parish schools and with Bossier Parish schools. There are 2 technical high schools, and so those of you that don't know my background, I was also a high school principal, career tech ed supervisor, but I did that in Bossier Parish schools. And we had a technical high school, Bossier Parish School for Technology and Innovative Learning. That was my baby back then. And so we did lots of dual enrollment. A very odd little caveat, I had a high school on our Shreveport campus. And so for 16 years, I ran a high school that was, I worked at it as a teacher, assistant principal, and a principal, a Bossier Parish school in Caddo Parish, which was very interesting until Bipstel was built. So we built that relationship, and that's where my love for dual enrollment truly started, in seeing that working side by side with our colleges. And, you know, I'm sitting there thinking, if we're teaching the same thing, why are high school students not getting the same credit and getting that jump start opportunity? So that became a huge passion of mine to really build that out. So that's where we're starting and what we're doing. Working with BESE with ways that can increase that, but that SCA funding is huge for our students because that's what fuels the dual enrollment. And what happens to us a lot of times, we could have more students, but they run out of their SCA funds. One thing that I work very closely with our high schools, I have crosswalked every college course that we offer to the high school, and I took their Jumpstart pathways and I crosswalked it for them. So those students, when they come out of high school, if they're going that pathway, they will have those 9 CTE credits that are tied to the college, as well as building in those industry-based credentials that they need, because this is how I really, really preach this to our rural schools. You do not have the capacity to build an automotive shop, a welding shop, or find an instructor with the minimum skills that are required to attain that certification to teach. But we have it. Please use us. We're here to be used. And so when I crosswalk it, I present that to counselors. I sit with counselors and I teach them how, here's where you choose that pathway, whether you're in a manufacturing or transportation or distribution. Here's how we can help you attain those 9 career tech ed credits that will lead to a completion point, a certificate of technical competency or a certificate of technical studies, the technical diploma, and I show them how that affects their SPS scores, that strength of diploma that they need. And then they start kind of waking up thinking, wow, we really need to partner with our colleges. And so I would say anything that you can do to support that knowledge and helping those counselors, what do you say, is it help those counselors understand that piece. I bring them to the campus and rotate them through just to even understand what the programs look like, what depth of knowledge they need to be working with those students on, those reading skills, those math skills. But of course that funding is huge. Any ways to help provide that support, because mom and daddy do not have money to go ahead and pay for tuition until they're eligible for the TOPS or the MJ Foster down the road, the Pell Grants and so forth. That's needed.
It's SCA?
The SCA, it's
what does that stand for?
Let me just draw a blank on school course allocation funds.
Okay.
Another area, the CDF funds, career development funds. I try very hard to crosswalk using that career development fund list to crosswalk that, because that is what helps those schools gain. I don't know what the dollar amount is at that time, but it's over $230, $240 per student that are enrolled in a course that is considered a CDF course. And so I try to educate those schools as to which courses those are to help them generate more funds to be able to send the students to courses or to programs that can support that Jumpstart plan. And guys, I don't just say Jumpstart. It could be a university student or a Jumpstart student. You can do both. I have one school district, they're graduating from us with their technical diploma or associate degree at the same time they're graduating from high school. Helping the high schools understand to think outside the box. Quit thinking of that typical day of school. We're bigger than that now. It's time to be very creative with what you're doing and how you can even schedule. Okay, I got on that soapbox, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Members, I want to thank this panel for this presentation and talking about this work-based learning effort. This is really impressive work, and I'm grateful for Dr. Denley organizing one of these every month or every meeting that allows us to get closer to the work that's happening on our campuses. So thank you all, and thanks for spending the day with us. We're going to go out of order slightly because I know we're losing our quorum member by member. So I'm going to ask us to vote on the committee reports and recommendations while we still have a quorum. If any board member wishes to take up any of these reports separately, let me know, and we can consider them individually. But otherwise, well, ask that question. Does anyone want to take up these committee reports separately, or are we okay in Globo? All right, great. Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve all the committee recommendations from today's committee meetings in Globo?
I so move.
I heard Aubrey, and then I heard David. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed saying nay. Excellent. Motion passes. All right. Next up, we have the LA First presentation. Members, the ability to share data and analyze that data at the state level is really critical to our efforts to drive good policy. A year ago, the legislature passed a comprehensive data sharing bill. Today, we've got a presentation from LA First on their progress. Dr. Denley, Ms. Vernon, and Mr. Barnes will present to us. And the floor is theirs when they're ready.
Chairman Solomon, while they're getting situated,
sir,
I would be remiss, I know he's here as a guest, but I would like to publicly acknowledge and thank Honorable Mayor Ellis, Friday Ellis, from this great city of Monroe in North Louisiana for being here and being supportive of all these outstanding efforts. He has a wonderful community college in his campus, and he's married to an outstanding partner we just heard from. So, as well.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Vernon and Mr. Barnes, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you and good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here to provide an update on LA First. I had a chance back in October to present a little bit of workforce data and labor force data to the board, and use that opportunity to give you all a sneak preview of some of the work to come with LA First. But we've made a lot of progress since then. I'm looking forward to giving you all a good top to bottom update. So to set the stage, what is LA First? It is a new state data center. The long name of that is Louisiana's Foundational Integrated Research System for Transformation. And I think we really have, I think, an ambitious plan of work ahead of us to do research that's going to have a real impact on the state. It was established by Act 394 of the 2023 legislative session. And really created this as an initiative of the Board of Regents, so legislatively housed within Regents, to be administrated by the Kathleen Blanco Center at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. It is a state data center designed to link existing administrative data to support public policy research. So there's not a new data collection process here, but this is really saying we've been collecting a lot of data for decades, and we're seeing a lot of other states take advantage of these data to draw new insights about what's working, what's not working. This is a chance for Louisiana to get into that type of process, into that type of research. And so we've got 8 data partners noted here on the slides: the Department of Education, the Workforce Commission, Department of Child and Family Services, Department of Health, Department of Public Safety and Corrections, the Office of Juvenile Justice, of course the Board of Regents, as well as local education agencies. And we'll talk a little bit more about exactly what that means in terms of that local component of it. But broadly speaking, the legislation establishes 3 annual policy reports that we'll be producing. In the legislative update earlier today, you heard about Act 330, which focuses a lot on workforce alignment within the state. And there was actually a small provision in that bill that specifically authorized LA First to be used to produce ad hoc reports at the request of a state entity. And so that introduces, beginning next year, a new option in terms of being able to make better use of this data resource. Those 3 big reports that we'll be producing on an annual basis are summarized briefly here. The first, called Launch Louisiana, really focuses on that linkage between the K-12 public system and workforce or post-secondary education and training. And so really trying to better understand that full spectrum of pathways that young people move through, so that we can do more over time to cultivate those pathways to success, as well as find ways to redirect or reimagine how to get people out of the less fruitful pathways onto those more successful and productive ones. The second major report focuses on Louisiana employment outcomes, and that's really thinking about the alignment between our higher education, workforce and training systems and the labor market and workforce. And again, we'll want to be taking a broad view there as we think about education and training, but having really a new opportunity to dive much deeper into these questions with longitudinal data so that we can see those individual pathways through our different education training systems and into the workforce longer term. Finally, we'll have a report focused on causes and consequences of criminal and delinquent acts. The name for that one speaks a little bit more for itself, but really focusing on the criminal and juvenile justice systems and understanding factors that may increase the likelihood of people engaging in those activities and ending up as part of those systems, as well as their return to society, how to get people re-engaged and what programs are working and not working to help lead to better long-term outcomes there. So those are the three broad reports that really serve as kind of a focus of the work that we're doing. We talked early on about a much broader set of data that is being brought in here. So our hope is that in each of these that there's going to be an opportunity to really leverage data from that full set of data partners in order to paint a much richer picture around these stories and understand these issues in a much deeper way. At a very high level, just to kind of help you visualize what this new entity looks like, how it will function, we've got, you can think about the data partners that in virtually all cases have been collecting these data for a very long time, that will now be sending not all, but a subset of kind of the core, kind of most central data to LA First. So there will be copies of those data brought into LA First. We'll talk a little bit more, I'll hand it off to Rachel to talk a little bit more about how the work that we're doing will be organized. But every step of the way, data confidentiality and security is at the top of our minds. And then again, the sort of primary outputs being those three legislative reports, but those are things that we'll want to be making sure we come back and share with key stakeholder groups like this group here, as well as the general public at large. With that, I'm going to hand it over to our LA First Director, Rachel Verlin, to talk a little bit more about the work ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Barnes. I'm here to give you an update on implementation, and a lot of activity has happened since I started in December. First, an operations that's a data center and a research program might not be that exciting, but I think that will produce a lot of exciting things with it. I'm really excited to be a part of the team. So far, in terms of building the infrastructure for the data center, we've worked very diligently with our data partners to execute 7 of 7 data sharing agreements, which are legal agreements that outline the approved uses and the data elements that will be shared from each of our data partners to LA First for this public policy research project, or these research projects. We are implementing data privacy and security in partnership with OTS, so we've established a secure server environment within OTS, and all of our staff are subject to OTS data privacy training. And so as we onboard, it's about a month process for each person who has access to these data to learn how to protect them. Right now, we've been specifying the data files that will come over from each agency and data partner, and we're preparing for secure file transfer, which is a business process in itself that protects the data as it arrives into the OTS secure environment. Also excited to have some of our early staff here. We have 13 total staff planned for this project. 5 are hired. We're finalizing offers for 2. 4 searches are live, and we have 2 planned positions on the way. And a lot of activity going on this summer. Of the team members are here, we have some of the team leads for some of these activities here. The research division is kicking off meetings with each of our data partners to talk about research agendas. This is an annual report, but what we explore in the annual report may change over time. And how it will change will be dictated by what we hear from our data partners as the most important public policy issues or program issues of the time. And so we're listening. We're out and meeting with our data partners and listening about what topics are important to you, what burning questions do you have about our topics in Louisiana. And if you recall, Launch Louisiana is about educational transitions from high school. We've got Louisiana's employment outcomes, which kind of take employment past our traditional schooling age, and then causes and consequences of a criminal and delinquent acts, which really focuses on the criminal justice system and how people are faring when they interact with the criminal justice system and after they have interacted with it. The Information Division this summer is working on a comprehensive data inventory. That means logging each data element that's coming over from each agency, figuring out how it should be protected, and then making sure that our researchers have really well-defined definitions of the data to ensure that the researchers are using and interpreting these data correctly. If you're interested in data flow diagrams, here's your opportunity. This, I won't go too far into detail, but I'm sure you or your constituents may have a lot of questions about this, and so this is to tee off that we're here to talk to you about this and to be transparent about the process we've designed to protect personally identifiable information and to comply with regulations of the law and honor the data sharing agreements that we've established with our data partners. So we can kind of see the framework that we saw before, where our data partners share data with us, and we process it within the Blanco Center. The review that's established with each of our data partners before the reports can even be public. But I think what's important to emphasize is that there's a very small and limited team in the Information Division which receives the data and processes it to link the data together. That allows us to see an individual life over their interactions with multiple state agencies. It allows the researchers to study these lives without knowing who the people are, because the PII stops in the Information Division and the research is conducted in the Research Division, which receives analytical files for research that don't have PII in them. They will have a replacement study ID. Non-disclosure review is up on the right-hand side of this slide, and non-disclosure review is really a process that gives the agencies and entities participating a view of our final reports to make sure that it is impossible to identify an individual in the tables and the analyses that we present in the reports. And then, of course, hopefully all of you will see our finalized reports annually in the orange boxes below. That's it. That's it from us.
It's a fascinating presentation. Thank you so much. Members, do you have any questions?
Quick question. Do you have school attendance data in any of your data coming?
So the data that we'll be getting from the Department of Education will give us a picture of enrollment and attendance for all public school students. There's one small caveat to that, which I did want to touch on today, which is some of you may all be aware that Louisiana has put in place roughly 10 years ago some very protective data privacy laws around student data that have made some of the operational aspects of working with data like this exceedingly difficult. One of the intents behind establishing LA First was to not undo all of that, and so you hear us talk a lot, we think a lot about the privacy and data protection side of this, but to introduce kind of a small opening to be able to do this kind of work, because it is so important for us to be able to understand how our public programs are working and what we can do to set our young people up for long-term success. So the caveat to that is the Department of Education does have a lot of student data, but that personal information that lets us link resides with each individual school district. And so the law does say that all of those school districts are to participate, but in order to get them on board, we need those local districts to opt in. And so that's a process that we're actively still working on. And so we're knowing the great group of kind of interested stakeholders that we have in the room today, I would say, if that's something that you can help us with making those connections in your parts of the state, getting superintendents bought into the value of this work so that we can have the most coverage possible with this. I think, we think realistically we'll get very close to 100%, but it's going to take a lot of work for us to get there.
And with that, you'll get down to the student level.
Exactly.
Happy to help. I'll follow up.
Thank you. Members, anything else? Well, thank you so much for sharing. We look forward to these reports. Next up, we have the Commissioner's report. So, Commissioner Reed, over to you.
Thank you so much. I recognize I'm standing between you and the door. So I will be brief, but this has been another great Board of Regents meeting. I really appreciate the level of engagement from all of you. First of all, we didn't have a board meeting last month, so we missed the opportunity to wish happy birthday to our board chair. So you have a little treat here, and we hope that you had a fabulous birthday.
Changed so many diapers. It was so much fun.
Don't worry, you're going to get on the other side of it with these little people. It's so much fun. My governor's fellow had to run out the door, but hopefully you had a chance to meet Vanessa, who is with us through August. She is a fellow, one of 13 fellows with Governor Landry, and they're embedded into our offices. And so we're very much enjoying Vanessa, who, as you see, is a Nichols State University student pursuing a degree in political science. And so we're just really enjoying having her with us. Took her with me to New Orleans, to the Cabildo for the Study Louisiana reception. This was part of the National Association of International Educators Conference, which was hosted in New Orleans. And so this was an opportunity for Study Louisiana, which is a consortium of all of the colleges and universities that do international education, to showcase what we have to offer. So hopefully more countries will be sending their students to us. And so big shout out to the Study Louisiana team, Lieutenant Governor's Office, and others who helped us to really put on a fantastic reception. Met people from all over the globe, and we had a U.S. ambassador from Qatar there as well. So just so well done. Want to thank Governor Landry for this student success reception, where we awarded over 100 scholarships to African American males in high school or in college who are continuing their education. They have to be enrolling in one of our Louisiana institutions, but really grateful to the governor's office for these Cedric Richmond scholarships and the great reception there. You know, we can't get to our attainment goal until we make sure that every student has access to affordable, high-quality education and training, and so this is a big part of that. We mentioned the Teacher of the Year, and Misty Cordell and I can tell you, if you see a Teacher of the Year with a heart dress on, she's all in. She's all in. So Dr. Craig had an opportunity to visit with the Teacher of the Year, Kylie Altier, from Buchanan Elementary School. So she is the podcast, Louisiana's Got Talent podcast guest this month. So we will send that to you so that you can listen in, because she is some kind of fabulous. I want you to hear that. And then, of course, a big thank you to our team, to the governor, to the legislature. We made it to the other side of legislative session. You know, sessions are tough and challenging, but we are grateful for the work. As we talked about, some of these bills have been decades in the making, and will have significant impact on our colleges and universities. So to the president and the speaker and all of the bill authors and the governor, just really a great big thank you from higher ed and certainly the students of our institution. So with that, Mr. Chair, back to you.
Thank you, Kim. Yes, look, I'll echo the tremendous thanks to our team, and especially to the commissioner for the leadership through this session. Kim and I started most days together at 6:30 or 7 a.m. talking. We'd end the day around 10 p.m. talking, and it was amazing to me that Kim never flinched. And no matter what the curveballs that were thrown at us, she and the team steadily ensured that these bills that really mattered and make a difference, like our deferred maintenance bill, got through cut through the noise, and came out on the other side, because it's going to benefit our students for decades to come. So thank you, Kim, and thank you to the whole team for all you did. Members, as a reminder, we do not meet in July. Our next meeting is going to be August 28th at 9 a.m. Is there any other business to come before this committee or this board? Nope. Sure.
Thank you for that. We are always preparing for hurricane season, and that's everything from campus emergency plans and the ability to stage space for standing back up utilities, et cetera. We do a survey of all generator needs in advance of the hurricane season so that we have that information, what size generators for fuel, et cetera. And so there's a lot of continued preparation that's happening. We hope that we will be spared, but you're right, they are reporting expectation of a very busy season. So we're certainly moving that forward. We do, we absolutely, when there is a storm or a preparation for a storm, Regents coordinates that information, requests for information, if there's school closures, if there's flooding, when there are alerts, our staff will send that out. We check in with them to say, are your facilities okay, are your students okay? Making sure they have evacuation plans for students and partnerships with other institutions in North Louisiana for our South Louisiana students. So all of that is part of our coordination with the system and the regions as well.
Commissioner, do we have a relationship with GOSEP? I imagine GOSEP's changed leadership, I imagine.
Yes, it has changed leadership. We have already been to GOSEP to meet and meet all the new folks, and so we're putting names with faces there too.
Awesome. Great question, Regent
But we
Aubrey.
do not want a hurricane.
No, we don't.
We're not interested in that, but thank you for the question.
And already, they've been bad, and there it is.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Regent Aubrey. Doreen, do we have any public comments? We have no public comments. Hearing none, Regents, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Regent Meir, is there a second? Regent Cordell, any discussion or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed saying nay. Members, we are adjourned. See you at the end of August.